So for these draft picks tonight, we're live, by the way. This is one of my favorite nights of the year. Their palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. With the NFL draft in Detroit, guys, what is your favorite thing about Detroit, Jay?
Favorite thing about Detroit?
Yep.
I don't actually have one. The only place in Michigan I have any connection to in any shape, manner, or form is Ann Arbor. So
Slim Shady Anthony Strait?
Yeah, my two favorite things of Detroit: old Mom Spaghetti and the birthplace of RoboCop.
ooh, I can give you one. Here you go. Octopus is getting thrown on the ice at Red Wing games. There you go.
I hate that. That's actually my least
Barry
favorite
Sanders.
thing. For me, that's the only thing. It's Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, and whatever is done. Whatever else is there. The only good parts of the Lions organization. My name is Steve Rabinowitz. Good evening.
I'm Jay Kaplan. Welcome to NFL Draft Night.
And I'm Anthony Strait. I wish I had to put that hat on. It just messed up my mane. Hold on just a second. All right, I'm good.
Make sure you don't hug Roger Goodell on the way out. This is, again, the On the Sports Nights live draft night special. Every year, someone comes out of this looking like a donkey. Can you hear me? That is a quote from Draft Day, by the way. I couldn't find any other quotes that really were good. It's a mediocre movie starring Kevin Costner. I don't like it at all. But tonight we promise you coverage that excels. We'll talk top 5, locals, wide receivers, other picks, offensive linemen. You want it, you got it. So this is a live show. So we're going to be stalling for time before picks. So I want some thoughts with you guys, starting with Jack.
It's as I was saying to you, when we were pre-gaming before we went online, I'm a control freak. So the utter randomness of what happens on draft night usually drives me crazy because I have to over prepare and then I have to figure out, okay, what from all of this data what nugget can I find to really, make my point across. So I have some things that I'm looking forward to getting out there. Found some interesting things. I got to tell you, once we get into it, fellas, and the picks start coming in, it is, next to the Super Bowl, the best night on the NFL calendar. And I was watching Good Morning Football this morning, and Peter Schrager made one request to not necessarily the guys who have to break the news and get the picks before Goodell actually announces it. But he said to the viewing audience, put your phone down, get off Twitter, get off social media, and just watch everything unfold in real time. Be surprised, be shocked, but enjoy what is one of the last true reality TV shows, unscripted, in existence.
No, if I would call it unscripted, Anthony, but because definitely it's been changing. Very lightly scripted. What are your thoughts going into
my thoughts every year watching the NFL draft is just being able to see these young men, all the hard work, all the tutelage, all the parenting, the teaching, the tour days, and to see the childhood dreams come true in one night. I think it's one of the best things to see them be able to share that with their loved ones. And nowadays, obviously, the draft is taking on a life of its own. You see downtown, you see the Detroit area, it is packed. It's been that way for the last several hours. And I don't know if you have it on, Coach, you have it on right now. Eminem just took the stage. But to see the fans come together for all these different teams, and to feel really part of it, I think it's been one of the best things the NFL has done. I've been to a couple of years when it was at when it was in Manhattan, and I can tell you that it's a great experience as a fan to be there, and to see it now, it is basically the start of the official new NFL season. When you think about it, think about the free agency, and now you got the rookies coming in, and then you saw it coming into the mini camp. Before you know it, the new season will be upon us.
The one thing that I kind of liked about the Radio City Music Hall days of this draft is just the fact that you had Jets fans basically on edge the entire time, anytime they made a pick. If you ever go back There's a famous thing that ESPN made of just all of the draft picks that ended up being busts that the Jets have made throughout the years. And we're not talking like in the Philly sense of when they picked Donovan McNabb instead of Ricky Williams and pick number 2 in 1999. I'm talking about the Kyle Brady's of the world, not the Ken O'Brien's of the world, but just every bad pick that they have made over the years. That's the only reason I say it. It's a little bit of a different atmosphere now, which I kind of like because there were 150,000 people 2 hours before the draft in Detroit. They are there to see somebody at a podium, not a football game, it's a spectacle now, which is great to see, but it's just shocking to see it like this. It'll be in other places for years. And it's great to see that the draft is taking on a mind of its own. It's something that people want all of the time. But it's just shocking to me to see that we've gotten to a point where the draft is literally its own season in the NFL. I don't know if I like it. I'm the same, but I feel like it's the NFL. The NFL is king, and guys, we just have to get used to it sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with you. The one of the things that I actually miss about the draft, being, back in the day when it was permanently, at Radio City Music Hall, was the fact that, back in the day when we were doing more, content, almost every year, the Saturday, we would, go down there and we would interview fans of all the, who came in from various cities, rooting with all their rooting interest and kind of, get their take on their team and who they wanted to see get picked. And since, the first round had already happened, get their take on whether their team made the right choice. We would get some very interesting fan on the street interviews outside of Radio City Music Hall.
Tremendously interesting fan of the street interviews from what I've seen in the past. That was pretty much before my time, but still.
Yeah, it's like a fan fest, pretty much, for 3 days.
Props to Tiffany for handling those sometimes very interesting characters that whose face she put a mic in front of to get some quotes. She handled herself quite well.
Well, she is an interesting character as is. Okay, so as the draft is about to start. So tonight, like I said, we're going to go through so many different things on the way here. So we're going to kind of have a longer talk on the number 1 pick because we kind of know who the number 1 pick is as the clock is now officially started. So the Carolina Panthers earned the number 1 pick of the 2024 NFL draft with the terrible 2-15 season. However, due to trading up with the Chicago Bears the previous year to get the number 1 pick a year ago, the Bears are the one who get the pick after an actually pretty improved 7-10 season where they were the number 1 pick the year before. That ended up turning out. Trading getting DJ Moore also in the process and getting the number 1 pick. Womp womp, Carolina. With the trade of former starter quarterback Justin Fields to the Steelers, I'm not going to get you started, Jay. Only one way this pick seemed to go, and it looks like it's going to be Caleb Williams, quarterback USC. We'll figure out if that's going to be official in a few minutes. But Jay, to many, this is one of the best can't-miss prospects that we've ever seen in this position in a very long time.
Yeah.
As Public Enemy said, don't believe the hype or believe the hype. Will this be the right pick?
It's a little bit of both, because the college game is so different. Since we have time, I'm going to read a quote from an article that got published basically this morning about drafting of quarterbacks. And it's a great piece by Mike Jones. I actually put the link up on our Twitter page this morning. And here's the passage that gets me. He goes, on Thursday, teams will draft the next crop of projected franchise saviors, but these pivotal selections essentially amount to educated guesses about a position often described as the hardest to play in all of professional sports. In the modern era of the NFL draft, since 1967, 130 quarterbacks have been selected in the first round. Only 61, less than 50%, have won a playoff game as a starter, according to NFL research. Just 58, less than 45%, have garnered a Pro Bowl. just 13. 8% won a Super Bowl as a starter, and 2 of those guys didn't even win their Super Bowls for their original teams. Projecting quarterback talent poses such a challenge in part because of the differences between the college and pro games. Yes, college prospects play the same position, but transitions rarely prove seamless because college offenses and the defenses they face differ so greatly from those on a professional level. And you guys hear me talk all the time about, does the guy, is he a fit with the team he's going to and the offense that they run? There's very few quarterbacks who come in from college who are what we call scheme neutral. Last year's crop, CJ Stroud was the only one I was somewhat put in that bucket. Caleb, look, I'll read you straight through Dane Brugler's scouting report. He's got rare football awareness. He's got impressive pocket mobility, feel for negotiating the rush to evade defenders in confined spaces. Unique ability to quickly set his base, find his balance, any platform. He has a good fastball, can adjust his arm angle. We've seen him do the Mahomes trick, right? Has touch and accuracy. Doesn't matter whether he's making a layered throw or a drive throw. Uses the entire field, doesn't lean on a specific zone. He can deliver the ball as before receivers enter their break. His eyes are always up, stays in pass first mode, even when he's scrambling, which is something a lot of quarterbacks who come out of college are unable to do in the pros. He reads pressures well pre-snap, knows how to locate his hot reads, works well in, zone reads and RPOs, can run the true dual threat, can run the ball, average over 10 yards a carry. The thing is with him is the ball security. Holds the ball loose from his body. 16 of his 33 career fumbles came this past season. He does have a tendency to bypass, singles and doubles as he searches for home runs. Sometimes he asks a little too much of his offensive line. 240 of his dropbacks over the last 2 years lasted over 4 seconds. He can get stuck on reads too long. Pressure will speed up his process, can lead to some negative results. Everybody remembers Notre Dame. And he's partially responsible for getting sacked 84 times over the last 2 years, 35 last year. He can abandon his mechanics, occasionally leaves a clean pocket in favor of, creation. There's so many things that are good about him. He can, he can make all the throws. He accounted for more plays of 20 plus yards, 134, and 50 plus yards, 20 than any other college player over the last 2 years. He's always in position to throw. Led the FBS in touchdowns overall, the 120. The guy makes wow plays all day and all night. There are a whole lot of things that you like about him as a ball player. There's the Mahomes comparisons are legit, to a certain extent, though somebody I think recently called him the karaoke version of it. And that's because we've yet to see it actually happen at this level. One of the big things that he's going to need to work on is staying and playing on schedule. It's almost like he feels the need to make the big play, the hero ball play, and doesn't necessarily always take the layups that are there. There's here's a couple of coaches, and this is kind of how they chimed in on him. Regarding NFL readiness, no prospect has a better foundation for throwing and movement efficiency like Caleb. Although his arm strength is 99th percentile, he can throttle and adapt his throws at a similar pace to Mahomes. Coach 2, you'll see guys like Caleb and Mahomes, they have crazy external rotation. Another coach said, so what I mean by that is when they start their throw motion from horizontal, when they get to this vertical point and they start going forward, their arm is able to go so far past 90 degrees that allows them to change arm angles with their spine angle. If you notice, CJ Stroud, who's a great thrower, of course, doesn't have the same external routine. Now, that's not meant as a dig at Stroud. It's just meant to differentiate Williams' special ability to change his arm angles and still throw accurately. Criticism of his mechanics in that regard, he tends to slow his arm too much when he's trying to layer his throws, which can affect ball placement. It's a fixable thing, even at this level. The thing that I worry about with him you know, can he adapt to the changes that he's going to come into at the NFL level? You know, people talk about Patrick Mahomes playing with so much poise. Caleb does too, but not as consistently. I mean, think about it. We talked about the 33 fumbles. Mahomes has fumbled just 4 times with over 600 touches over 7 NFL seasons. You know, that's the thing that you got to worry about. Can he take care of it? I mean, look, yeah, granted, here's one of the quotes that I like. If it's your grandfather's quarterback you're looking for, Williams is not it. Doesn't play like a traditional quarterback, doesn't express himself like a traditional quarterback, and he isn't a conformist like a traditional quarterback. He's been criticized for, you know, things that he does that are outside of, you know, related to what he does on the field.
And he is the pick, by the way, officially now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
There you go. You know, I mean, and the thing is like the people wonder if his reluctance to stay in the pocket could be attributable to processing issues, lack of confidence in his blockers, or a predisposition to run. If he stayed in the pocket less in last season than he did in 2022, his Heisman year. And there are people who believe in him and praise him for his off-schedule ability. And there are those who question him, you know, they kind of want to see him more within the confines of his scheme. Found a couple of interesting stats. Where is produced a better EPA per dropback than CJ Stroud, was better by the same metric outside of the pocket than Bryce Young, had a better efficiency on design rushes than Anthony Richardson. Those are the top 3 quarterbacks from last year's draft, which is interesting. We talked about, you know, the pressure to sack rate. That's something that's a little concerning. How often, you know, he's responsible for pressure turning into a sack. Benchmark for good, 17%. Williams was almost 25% in his final year, and his career was a little under 21. The thing is I don't know if he's going to be able to do that to the same extent in the NFL. And that's another thing that scouts talk about, you know, the way he was able to basically run around all day back there and wait for something to happen. Defenses won't let him get away with that in the NFL. And here's my bottom line, guys. It seemed like this past year's USC offense was a little more disconnected than the previous year, his Heisman year. And I say that based on what my eyes saw. I don't have a copy of USC's playbook or their week-by-week game plan, so I don't know what throws Caleb was being Caleb, or you know, so whether or not he was being asked to read certain coverages and react a certain way. Was it a drop-off in talent at the wide receiver and running back position? Case could be made. Did the defense put the team in bad positions more often? That's a yes. Did Caleb channel his inner Patrick Mahomes and scramble all over the place to try and make, you know, too many 5-run homer hero type plays this season because of both things? That's a yes. When the first read was there, he got the ball out quickly and on schedule, but there were so instances where it didn't seem like he was actually going through his progressions and either going to a secondary read or a check down, taking what the defense was giving him. That's something that NFL scouts are concerned about. Was Caleb wanting to make a big play because he felt he needed to, or because the offensive scheme was more disconnected than the year before? Look, there's no doubting his arm talent, but the opportunities to create the type of plays he made against Pac-12 defenses needs air quotes in the Pac-12, will not be there against NFL defenses. Can he develop the NFL level processing and on-schedule skills that are required of a franchise quarterback to combat NFL defensive schemes and marry that with his innate ability to create plays when there doesn't seem to be anything there?
The one thing that's going to be interesting is moving over to Shane Waldron's system, the offensive coordinator from Seattle, moving over to there. I think that's going to be a huge improvement. Yeah, no, Luke Getsy was never going to have the chance to take care of Caleb Williams in the pocket. This is the 3rd quarterback, by the way, that the Bears have taken in the last 8 years in the first round.
And 2 of them wound up wearing Steeler black and gold.
Yep, and one of them is there now, and one of them was there the year before. So, but I think this is going to be one very interesting career for Caleb Williams. I think when you have the hype that you did going in to the 2023 season that he did, because he was the prospective #1 pick the whole entire time, and the only thing that was going to hurt him was a horrible season or injury. He had a mediocre season on his standards and his winning percentage. He had double the losses, I think, in his entire career last year. He now has 10. I think he had 5 last year at USC. By the way, Utah does have the playbook for USC. I have a feeling if you had known that, if you know that record throughout the years, Utah definitely has the playbook. But I think this is the right pick for Chicago because I think if you're going to need a quarterback, and this is the way that they decided to go, they could have kept Justin Fields, but I don't think they thought they could get to the next level with Justin Fields, which I sort of agree with, but that's another question for another time. I think he is by far the best of the big three, and I said big three quarterbacks in this draft just because of experience, because of being ready to be in a pro-style offense. And that's one of the things that I really like about Caleb Williams. And I like the fact that he has stars to throw to right away. He's going to have Keenan Allen. He's going to have DJ Moore.
For the Bears.
And I think Chicago is going to be a player with Caleb Williams. I don't know if it's going to be year one, but again, he's not going to a 3-win team from last year. He's going to a 7-10 team from last year, who did get most of their wins at the back half of the season. But I think there's going to be a very interesting dynamic of Caleb Williams just with his pocket presence and his just pro ability to be where he is now. Anthony, give me your thoughts as we await the next pick.
Well, I've heard a lot of the comparisons. I know Jay pointed out to Patrick Mahomes. Another one is Kyler Murray. And you think about his size, 6'1", 214. Kind of like well, small stature for a QB, but his ability to improv and to be able to make plays with his feet outside the pocket. And to piggyback on what Jay said, it's going to be the question of how quickly he'll be able to process defenses on a pro level. On top of the fact that whatever hero ball that he would get kind of find himself into, he's not going to get away with that in the pros. So it's just a matter of how much can he cut down on that. Can he learn to be a little more patient and take what the defenses give him? That not everything, he's not going to have the big plays downfield like he did at USC. You think about this, his passing rate was really good, well over 100. So clearly he's able to make the throws. And another thing is going to be his accuracy. Can he be a little more? Can he maintain some consistency with his accuracy? Sometimes he can hit the long balls. Sometimes he'll miss on the shorter passes. There are times he'll be late on a pass or looking for sit on one route a little too long, and there was something else that could open up on the back end. Those are things he's going to have to adjust to very quickly on the pro level. And obviously, we look at his passing rate. It's 170.1 passing efficiency. So obviously, the kid he steps in, he can play right away. He's going to have weapons to throw the ball to, obviously. So he's in a better position than most number one draft picks would be. Going to a 2 or 3 win team. He's going to a team that won 7 games, and like you said, Rabbi, came on pretty strong in the second half of the season, and pretty much kind of found a little bit of identity. Clearly, the Bills felt like Justin Fields was not the guy that was going to take it to that next level. They wanted to start over, and Caleb Williams is probably really the only sure pick in this draft that was like a no-brainer. I mean, obviously, we just had the number 2 pick come in. I'll let you set that one up for us, Rabbi.
All right, let's go over to the number 2 pick, who are the Washington Commanders. They didn't have questionable ownership like Jacksonville because they got new ownership last year, and they got to have the rewards of the 4-13 season, and they got the number 3 pick. Sam Howell, their starter from last year, is now in Seattle. I had to look that up because I really forgot that happened. Yeah. And now he's backing up Geno Smith. So new coach Dan Quinn, speaking of people who used to be in Seattle, wanted a fresh start. So they went quarterback with pick number 2, and they get the expected pick number 2 going in, Jaden Daniels, quarterback, LSU. As a guy who has seen a lot of LSU over the last few years, I do love the pick, and I love it for this team. As a sophomore, he was in Arizona State, and he just really just didn't get any time. And so he moved over to a team that really could use him to his best advantage in LSU. 5,139 yards as a junior, rushing for 1,292. He is I'm sorry, that was when he was in there. I apologize. But when he was in Arizona State, he went for 2,943 yards, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Then he had a bad 2021 season after the COVID year in 2020. When he went to LSU, he really excelled. 2,913 yards, 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and he led the team at rushing himself. He had 885 yards, and that was Brian Kelly's first year at LSU. And then last year, the Heisman Trophy season, 3,812 yards, 40 touchdowns, to 4 interceptions. So you have about 5,000 all-purpose yards out there, and 50 touchdowns accounted for last year from passing and throwing. He had no defense around him, but that's not really his fault. A man who is known for explosive plays, and that's something that people saw as we went through this draft process, which allowed him to really jump up forward. He excels with placement throws, and he has arm confidence that you want out of a guy. You want someone to have arm confidence. That might be too confident at times, and I have a feeling if you were talking about Caleb Williams' adjustment to the throws and knowing when to make the right decision, when to make the wrong decision, I have a feeling that even though he is a mature 24-year-old coming into the NFL, he might be making wrong decisions every now and then. He knows how to play the levels. He knows he has very good vision, and he is probably ready to be a NFL pro quarterback. You can see a lot of what CJ Stroud did last year in Daniels, but he is still a little more raw than Stroud was because he didn't really play in a pro style offense because the SEC doesn't really have too many pro style offenses out there.
No.
It's really just bring the ball over and just see what happens. The problem is he has a very slender bone structure,
Yeah.
credentials. That's his big problem out there, and that's what people think could be an issue in trying to evade tacklers and trying to he might need to be a little more precise with his placement, even though it does have that good vision. And one thing, if you're going to be durable in the NFL, which we saw a lot of injuries last year, he takes way too many hits. And of course, even though we saw it with Joe Burrow, who was a Heisman Trophy winner, had a lot of talent at LSU at the wide receiver position. Got to see that again here. The question always is, can somebody who had all of the ingredients to make a good meal at LSU do it in the Washington team that is kind of starting over here? I think they definitely made the right decision to pick a quarterback at this spot. And I think Jaden Daniels can lead this team to the future. I see a lot of Lamar Jackson in him. That's always going to be the first comparison. But he still has a lot of work to do. And sometimes in the not for long league, I don't know if that's going to work. I do think he'll be a very good quarterback. But in that division, that organization, it might take time that he might not have.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that stands out to me, Rabbi, and obviously I didn't, see as much of many of his throws as you did, but from what I did see and what I was, reading and coming across and comments from, coaches and scouts, the thing that a lot of people are in agreement on is that, Daniels made a lot of improvements in terms of efficiency as a thrower. And he does have strong mechanics. One coach said it's nitpicking, but when he puts a lot of heat on the ball, he tends to get over aggressive with his arm, leading to breakdowns. Now, he's an excellent touch thrower, but he didn't have to force a lot of, throws into tight windows, which he will have to do in the NFL, because of how good his receivers were as vertical threats in the system that he played in. Also had a lot of clean pockets with one of the best offensive lines in the country. When he broke the pocket, he would look to run rather than set up for the pass. And is he going to be able to maintain his mechanics in tighter pockets and smaller windows? The other thing that's something I keep an eye on in here. He threw the ball over the middle at 10 to 20 yards, less than any quarterback drafted in the first 2 rounds since 2020, 8.5%. The only other quarterback close to him was Fields at 8.9. Next lowest is Penix at 10.2. So that's a really low number. Avoiding the middle of the field that much raises a bit of a red flag for a lot of people, me included, especially when you're throwing to, a pair of first-round wide receiving targets in Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas. So we'll see if that was just a product of the scheme that they played at LSU, or if it's actually an issue that he's going to have to, improve on at the NFL level.
I would say this too for Washington fans. They get another quarterback with a slender frame and durability issues that might give them RG3 flashbacks. We remember, and you're thinking like, yeah, but RG3 kind of came in with the slender frame, and they wondered if, if he can take the punishment and hit the pro level. And unfortunately, we saw that his injuries kind of derailed his career. But one of the things about Daniels, one of his biggest strengths, I mean, it's off NFL.com. His game is marked by command of the field and football intelligence. So basically, he's a guy who does have to make up being a field general. He's able to command the offense, and can make the throws. But it's going to be interesting to see on the NFL level if he's capable of playing the position, or if he's going to be just a scheme base, because he's a guy who can definitely tell the lead apart in an RPO style offense or a spread offense. But if it's a traditional offense, you wonder if his skills translate well it's that and onto the NFL level.
And it's going to probably be a more traditional offense because you have Dan Quinn there, and I think that's going to be something that it's not his forte to really have a traditional offense. The only reason that, by the way, their offensive coordinator is going to be Cliff Kingsbury, so I think that's going to be something very interesting, because you mentioned the Kyler Murray references. You have somebody who has a little more of a body than Kyler Murray does. Murray was small. You have a little bit more in Daniels. The only reason I didn't like the RG3 comparison is because, first of all, I think RG3 was this outstanding player in his rookie season. The injury just derailed everything in his career. One injury can ruin you, especially if you have the legs. And again, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't know back then about what needs to be done to keep a quarterback like him healthy. And I think he played his balls off that first season. I hate to say it like that, but that's the way I kind of think about it. The only other thing I would say is, though, the intelligence of Daniels is far more than that. He kind of makes up for the attributes that he doesn't have in accuracy with just knowing where to throw the ball and when to throw the ball. Now, the question is he going to have a wide receiver that agrees with him? If that happens, if he has something like a Terry McLaurin, that could be a big thing in the future for the Washington Commanders. I probably called them the Redskins one time during this segment. I apologize completely. Do not cancel me. All right,
Rabbi, that you get one of those for every time I still refer to the Chargers as by San Diego. So,
but that's not something that needs to be canceled. That's something that's factual. They need to go back. They need to go back. All right. Like the Commanders, the New England Patriots also had a 4-13 season, and also saw the man who was at the helm the majority of 2023, Mac Jones, go back off to backup pastures, shot in the barn, and traded to Jacksonville, baby. New coach Jared Mayo, who replaced longtime Patriots coach Bill Belichick, and Anthony. We also lose the dog that he drafted with as well, Nike. We barely knew you, and we hope you find a place with another great coach in the near future. Sorry, Nike. They also had quarterback at number 3, going with Drake May, quarterback, North Carolina. Anthony, the Mayo era begins in New England. Ew.
Mayo,
the Mayo era. Hold the Mayo.
Yeah.
Anthony, Drake May, right pick or wrong pick?
That's the right pick for New England. I mean, obviously, the Mac Jones era didn't quite work out. And obviously, since Tom Brady left, they kind of cycled through a who's who of quarterbacks. You could throw Cam Newton into that mix also, but obviously for New England, a new coaching staff and a new era, they need a new quarterback. And obviously, they have Jacoby Brissett there to kind of man the quarterback position for the time being. To let Mayo sit and be more of a student and just kind of learn for the time being. Hopefully, the fan base can be patient and don't rush him out there after what a 1-4, 1-5 start. As you see nowadays, with fan bases in the local media, when they throw a guy out there almost immediately. But look at his stats. He's 6'4", 223, a big guy, a big strong arm. Got a Ben Roethlisberger comparison. Jay, I don't know if you would agree with that one a little bit. I think it's just more because the size and the big arm comparisons. But look at coming off a second team All ACC season, started 12 games, threw for 24 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Coming from an athletic family too. His father played at North Carolina. His brother played basketball in North Carolina. His brother won a national championship in baseball in Florida. His brother plays basketball for North Carolina. His mom attended North Carolina. So that family is Tar Heel blood and breed as it gets. But look at the overall comparisons, as overview. Size and arm talent jump off the tape immediately. He can make every throw. Will make throws that he probably shouldn't tell. He has a gunslinger mentality. That's something that Patriot fans haven't seen since number 12 left town a few years ago. There was one thing he has to work on. He does leave a lot of throws on the back shoulder on the hip area. His accuracy got to be touched up a little bit as far as leading receivers on catch and go situations. Look at some of his strengths. The ball comes on his hands on a tight spiral. Expedited operation time of read, so pressure closes in. Unquestionable arm talent, as I just mentioned. Quick pocket climber, mobility to slide free of pocket traffic, and so flashes of a clutch team. Some of the things he has to work on in the pro level. He does struggle with the chest match against pressure, so he does have an occasional time reading blitz coverages and blitz packages pre-snap. That's something he's going to have to work on because in the NFL, you're going to see a lot of those, particularly when you got defensive coordinators on the other side of that field who's getting paid to basically game plan against you each week of the season. Also, his receivers have to chase too many intermediate throws to throw. Again, a question about his accuracy. Leaves the ball behind. I just mentioned that. Particularly on those quick D-step drops, his passes a little off a little bit. But he does have a big game, big mobility. Is he ready to start right now? I would say no. I think he's a quarterback who needs to sit with a clip on, who needs to process the speed of the game a little more before he's thrown into the Lions den. But overall, if you want to talk about from a franchise perspective, this is a good pick for New England Patriots. They had to start over. Jones is not getting it. Jones' confidence is completely shot after that rookie season. And it's a good chance to finally reset the organization altogether. Gerard Mayo, new head coach, installing his own stake on the team, and now he's gonna have a quarterback to kind of build around for the foreseeable future.
Which he needed, by the way. I feel like now, Jay.
Yeah,
I'm going to hit you with a little bit of a thing here that I see. Two comparisons of Drake made to Justin Herbert, and Sam Darnold with the recklessness that he has. Which way do you think he'll end up going?
The funny thing is you bring that up, and like there was when I was going through my my research, there was a comment by Chris Sims, who Phil's son, played in the NFL for a long time, and here's his quote about when he was what he sees on film with Drake May. He goes, "If you watch 20 throws, you'll see good throws. Then the ball's all over the place. The decision making can be all over the place, and the pocket presence is all over the place. Let alone some mechanical flaws in how he throws the ball." Confirmed to me on his pro day, which was underwhelming. He's got all the size. He's pretty athletic when he runs. And here's the thing about it. This is the quote that relates to what you just asked me. I always hear that May is like Justin Herbert coming out or Josh Allen, and my brain wants to explode. The things that I kind of looked at, Drake May was identified early on, as a potential first-round quarterback. Guy's got prototypical size. He's 6'4", 223, got high-level arm talent. The thing is, though, I mean, Anthony, you talked about, the whole gunslinger thing. And though he has that reputation, his turnover-worthy plays were only at 1.9%, seventh among qualifying passers. What stood out, and this is something that a lot of people have pointed out when looking at his film, his footwork is out of sync with his receivers' routes. Now, quarterbacks typically want to match their drop with the passing concept. The quarterback should get to the top of his drop as the first read is about to come out of the break so he can throw the ball with no hitch or maybe one. that's an issue that May has to work on. He does throw a hell of a deep ball. His accuracy score on deep passes ranked 7th among qualifying quarterbacks, routinely hunted for opportunities and, unloaded them when he sensed a crack in the secondary he could take advantage of. Shown the ability to recognize when the split field safety in a cover 4 lineman stops his feet and there's a deep ball opportunity, and he's been aggressive in going after in those situations. The flip side of that is the aggressiveness. He was holding on to the ball, inviting pressure at times. And according to Pro Football Focus, May was second only to Caleb Williams in the percentage of pressures created by the quarterback, little under 26%. However, May was excellent at evading pressure and, drifting and sliding in the pocket to buy time, something not a lot of college quarterbacks have the skill set to do. Now, May dealt with a lot of pressure, and there were times where his footwork got sloppy, leading to inaccuracy, but more often than not, he was able to buy time within the pocket for downfield throws. He attacks the middle of the field with really, really good anticipation. We talked about the deep opportunities. Here's the thing, though. His traits are reminiscent of the passers we've seen reach, the top of the position. His creativity in the pocket, the way he manipulates defenses. That's kind of the stuff that's hard to teach. Again, reminds people of Josh Allen or C.J. Stroud. He needs to clean up his footwork. That is the biggest thing. But that's an easy fix compared to some other flaws. He may need a year, and Anthony, I agree with you. He may need a year to hone his fundamentals and experiment to kind of understand what he can and can't get away with in the league. But a lot of people have the opinion he does have the skill set to be a solid NFL quarterback in his second season in the league if he gets to have that quote-unquote redshirt year as a rookie.
You guys are crazy thinking he is not going to start year one. By the way,
well,
even
look,
if he needs it, this
who
is
did they
not
bring
a team.
Who did they bring in? They brought
I don't
in
even know
quarterback.
I don't even know who they brought in.
And they got Jacoby Brissett back in the fold.
Exactly.
He's been a Patriot.
That's somebody, but I mean,
the thing is that Brissett's been that bridge quarterback before. The Patriots have been comfortable with him being that bridge quarterback before. And after what happened to Mac Jones, you got to believe, and Mayo had a front row seat to that debacle. You got to believe he's going to do anything and everything to not repeat that Charlie Foxtrot of a situation.
He was part of that debacle, though, because he was part of the coaching staff. So I don't know what they see in that, but I do think he will start this year, whether it be later in this season or if he wins the job in training camp. But I still think you're right. He might need a year to kind of adjust to the NFL. We'll see what happens. But I don't like his decision making. That is for sure. I do think there is a big gap between 1 and 2 for me. That was Williams and Daniels. I do think they're the best quarterbacks in this draft, and then to number 3 in May. But I don't think the amount of schism between 2 and 3 is still up in the air for me, because I do think that will be the key to what New England does. But being in that quarterback position, considering the duds they've had over the past few years, especially with Cam Newton and Mac Jones, even though Jones did get to the playoffs, he might actually have a little bit of wiggle room to work with, which is something big. All right, guys, get excited because we didn't have a quarterback drafted at number 4.
Chalk.
Thank God. I don't get excited for chalk. Just get excited because a quarterback did not get drafted. The Arizona Cardinals also finished 4-13 in 2023, but impressed enough with Kyler Murray that he kept his incumbency as the starting quarterback in the desert. They got a weapon. They got the best weapon that you could get. Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State. And before I get to this pick, Anthony, I'm just going to say it up front. There ain't no more sure thing in this whole entire draft, and that includes Caleb Williams.
You know what? I mean, when you are the son of a Hall of Famer.
By the way, something I saw tonight. By the way, I just want to cut you off for a second.
Yeah,
the first time in 10 years, first time in 10 years, the son of a Hall of Famer is picked in the draft. That was Jake Matthews, by the way. So, good company.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. The son of Marvin Harrison Sr., a Hall of Famer. Marvin Harrison Jr. could have been a top 5 pick last season had he came out into the draft. Won the Bellingham Award, first team Social First All-American, Big Ten Conference wide receiver of the year. Led the team with 67 receptions, ranked 10th with 1,200 receiving yards in all college football. I just talked about his dad, obviously, 6'3", 209. And one of the biggest traits about Marvin Harrison Jr. is his route running, and that is something that the apple did not fall far from the tree. If you ever watched his Hall of Fame dad and those Indianapolis Colts teams, and Jay, you had a firsthand as a Steelers fan, and those and that classic playoff matchup in 06, to be exact, when the 05, I should say. The route running is there. Exceptional production at a high volume. Good rhythm, body control, uses their ability to change speeds. Highly focused deep ball tracker, can make body adjustments. Kyler Murray is getting a special at quarterback, and also is getting a special player. And obviously, he lost a couple of receivers. Hollywood Brown being one of those guys, so they need to give him some targets. And Harrison is a guy who can run the short intermediate routes and to cause you up and move the chains. He's a guy who can get downfield, and catch the deep ball very well. Mm-hmm. Last year had a uncharacteristic cases of drop, which doesn't happen often with him. No. Yeah, I mean that's kind of nitpicking a little bit because he does get a high volume of targets. But this outside Caleb Williams, this is a great draft for receivers. Obviously, we're going to talk more about the receivers after this draft. This is one of those that you can't miss picks at number 4. So Arizona, they definitely got a special player, Harrison Jr. Kyler Murray's going to fall in love with him from the moment they hook up in training camp come August and realize they get the timing down right, and Harrison's ability to get open. And Kyler Murray is a guy who improvises on the fly, has the big arm. He's gonna really love Harrison, it being in his arsenal.
Yeah. I want to go first on this, and very quickly. Unless you have a special quarterback out there, you have to have a number 1 wide receiver, and that being Kansas City. Mm-hmm. What Marvin Harrison does on the field can very rarely be replicated. He has great hands outside of the drops that he had last year. He has one of the better frames for a wide receiver that you can find and can get anywhere on the field. This is a guy who has been basically in a pro-style offense at Ohio State this whole entire time. The only thing that would concern to you is a couple of injuries that he's had on the field during bowl games, and that could come back to haunt him, and really just being more of a possession guy than he is a yards after catch guy. But there's nobody better at a wide receiver position to play in the NFL, probably in this decade, than Marvin Harrison Jr. This is, again, the only reason he didn't go 1 or 2 is because the top 3 picks needed quarterbacks, Jay.
Yeah, I'm going to give you the quick scouting reports from 2 guys whose opinion that I read, that I trust. First one is Daniel Jeremiah from NFL.com. Harrison has ideal size, speed, and production. He's built like a power forward, plays with a blend of physicality and explosiveness, uses upper body strength to power through press coverage, smooth, fluid route runner, closes the cushion quickly, gets on the toes of cornerbacks before sharply breaking off his route. He can tap into another gear when the ball goes up, tracks over his shoulder with ease, knows how to use his big frame, wall off shield defenders, huge catch radius, did have some contact drops in traffic, as Anthony mentioned, relies on his speed and physicality more than elusiveness after the catch. Overall, prototypical number 1 receiver. Here's Ted Nguyen, who writes for The Athletic. He does the film study. He's a guy I listen to a lot. If you play against him, he will win. If you play zone against him and give him a runway, good luck. Rarely do you see a college receiver command as much attention from defenses as Harrison did. He got the Calvin Johnson treatment in some games with 2 defenders dedicated to him. He's going to command extra attention from defenses the minute he steps onto a field. Freak combination of size and speed, does everything well. He can run a wide array of routes, can do the full tree, knows how to find holes in zones. He can play inside, outside, whatever you want to do. Best comparison for him, according to Ted, is Larry Fitzgerald, and who moved into the slot later in his career. Obviously, Harrison Jr. is going to be a force on the outside as well. He will dominate whatever he's asked to do. Don't overthink it. And this is the key right here. This is the way he ended his scouting report. Don't overthink it. Harrison is far and away the top receiver in this strong class. And Rabbi, speaking of receivers.
Well, no, because we have number 5 coming before we
Oh,
have
come
number
on.
6.
I think we need to go out of order here, man.
Fine, I'll go out of order, but I want to go back to
And
that.
the reason I'm
So,
saying that is because I called this pick, okay?
oh, okay, that's great. Let's just cater the show to Jay instead of going in order. That's
I called it,
amazing.
man. Come on.
So
Local
while we
president.
cater the show to Jay, let's get to a local portion of the show before we get to what we were supposed to go with the Chargers at number 5. So now the local portion of this show before we get back to our regularly scheduled programming. The New York Giants, Big Blue, picked at number 6 after a lackluster 6-11 season, and they were bound to go offense here, and they did, selecting Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU.
Yes,
Jay,
sir.
you called it, and
Yep.
because that you had me go right into this, please let me know what you think of the LSU stud that kind of made Jaden Daniels go number 2 as well.
Hey, I mean, look, you're going to have a lot more to say about this guy because you watched him game in and game out. But to me, this was the absolute right pick. Not because I have anything against Marvin Harrison. It's because I felt that Harrison would be off the board by this time. And in fact, he was. But I tell you this, what was interesting to me is there are actually a few wide receiver coaches who believe that Neighbors is better than Harrison. Here's the guy, one of the guys who said it, and here's the quote from that coach. Neighbors is the number 1 on my list, and I think he's on a lot of people's list. He's just different to me. I don't think it's anything towards Marvin. It's just really that Neighbors is that good. His skills with the ball in his hands are really different. His acceleration is just different. His explosive is different. He tracks the ball really well. He's a smaller guy, but he can still play outside. He's rare in a lot of ways. He's got some Jamar Chase in him, some DJ Moore skills. I hesitate to say this because Tyreek Hill's speed is just so different from anybody in the league, but Neighbors has some of that kind of burst and is just so explosive off the line of scrimmage. And honestly, that's saying something. You talk about his explosiveness. Think about this, guys. At least one catch of 20-plus yards in all 12 regular season games last year. 78.7% of his catches last year resulted in a first down or a touchdown. I mean, this guy, this is the number 1 receiver the Giants have been looking for since Odell Beckham led the FBS in receiving yards per game at almost 121, 34 catches of 20-plus yards. This guy can do exactly what the Giants need him to do. And again, once again, I'll give you Jeremiah and Nguyen's scouting reports on it. Jeremiah, Neighbors is a dynamic receiver with outstanding competitive and production, explodes off the line in his release, creating immediate separation, sets up defenders before snapping off his route. He isn't afraid to work the middle of the field, and that is a big thing in the NFL. And has strong hands to finish through contact when working back to the quarterback. He prefers to let the ball travel into his body, but his drops are limited, and that's an interesting dichotomy. Those things are usually don't go together. He can scoop low throws off his shoes and easily adjust to balls on his back hip. He does a lot of damage on slot fades where he uses his speed to win early, and he tracks the ball with ease after the catch. He explodes through tackles. Also has a nasty stiff arm. When you're a small guy, you kind of need that weapon. Overall, Neighbors is an electric playmaker who reminds Jeremiah of DJ Moore with the ball in his hands. And we've mentioned, DJ Moore already. Here's the overview from Nguyen of The Athletic. Neighbors' average play strength and inconsistency in beating press coverage will likely limit him to playing primarily in the slot or in an offense that utilizes a lot of compressed formations and motion like the Dolphins to get him clean releases. Now, despite not being a true X, meaning outside receiver, he can absolutely be a dominant number 1 receiver in the right offense. And right now, many teams run the type of scheme in which Neighbors can be successful. If he can improve his technique against press and add nuance to his route running, his ceiling is sky high. Neighbors' combination of elite speed, adequate size, and strong hands will make him a productive player, but to become an elite receiver, he has a steeper learning curve than Harrison and Rome Odunze of Washington, who are much more refined. But either way, Rabbi, you saw him, like I said, you saw him game in and game out. I think this is the exact right pick for the Giants. What do you say?
I absolutely think it's the right pick. I do think there's not as much of a gap between Neighbors and Adunze because I think Adunze has more of a polished skill set, and also Adunze has a better body for a wide receiver in this offense. But Neighbors' upside is going to be Justin Jefferson. And I think that's a very fair comparison. Just with the routes he runs, he also had learned his skills, by the way, from being a center fielder. So he knows how to catch the ball. And he started out as a wide receiver coming into LSU, which is why you said how that's the big thing about him. He can play all positions because he learned that in that offense. He is kind of the definition of just a fast break receiver. He is a guy who can move the chains and move your team down the field. Now, the question is who's going to throw him the ball, but that's really neither here or there because I actually think he works in a Daniel Jones type offense as long as Jones can get rid of the ball. It actually works out very well. The question is he's going to be jammed at the line of scrimmage a lot. He's going to be double teamed a lot. He is going to have to rely on his speed even more maybe than a Tyreek Hill will now. So that's going to be a small problem for him. And I do expect a little bit of an adjustment period. Again, it's just the same question the Giants have. Do they have time to – he's not going to be a fantasy stud year one.
No.
Might be a fantasy stud year two, though, because he's that special. But I do think he will have a growing pain or two on the way to superstardom with this team. But you're right. This is Odell Beckham part two, but with a better polished career and a better upside than Beckham had. Beckham was the 12th pick of the draft. This is Neighbors at number 6, where wide receivers obviously are a little more important these days, considering how much they get. It's just remember, though, his explosive plays 80% of the time. He almost 80% of the time in college. First down in 2023. First down, touchdown. Yep. That's what you want in a wide receiver in today's NFL. Now, Anthony, we're going to talk about the pick that you were going to pick here in a second when we go back to pick number 5 and Joe Alt. I want to know, do you think that going wide receiver for the Giants was the right call in just really the long run? Do you think that was their main position of weakness, or do you think their main position of weakness was offensive line, and that should have been the first spot that they were going to go for?
Well, the guy I would have picked, we're going to talk about, he was shot at number 5. That was Joe Alt to the Chargers. And we'll talk about him a little more in a minute. But when you look at the Giants as a whole, they have Daniel Jones one more year. So I just thought the absurdity of drafting a quarterback this early when you have a team and a roster with so many holes that need to be filled, I don't think drafting a quarterback this high would have been a good idea. It's like, well, if you have Daniel Jones for one more year, you got to give him some more weapons. And obviously, the Giants have not had 1,000-yard receivers since Odell Beckham Jr. A few years back. And then you think about this. Neighbors gives the Giants automatically a number 1 receiver because you think about who's on the team now, Wyatt and Slayton. They're not number 1 receivers, and Wyatt has proven to be more of a slot guy with his speed and can be able to create mismatches in the secondary. Neighbors gives them that number 1 receiver with the ability to give them the explosive deep threat downfield, and that's something that the Giants really have lacked in their offense. Even 2 years ago when they made the playoffs as a wild card and upset the Minnesota Vikings in the wild card round, they didn't really the explosive players were pretty far and few in between. If it wasn't Saquon Barkley being able to do it with his feet, or Daniel Jones being able to break a big run, the players is more of like catch and run, like a catch of 15 that happens to break for a big play. And that was the kind of offense the Giants have been saddled with. Now they get someone who can open up the offense and kind of open up the top of an opposing defense, particularly when you look at Neighbors' speed, and there aren't too many safeties in the NFL that can match speed for speed with a guy like Neighbors, and you mentioned Tyreek Hill, who relies on his speed to get off jams at the line of scrimmage. That's something he's gonna have to learn to do with more frequency, technique, how to get guys off of him at the line of scrimmage on bump and run coverage. But then you look at his 2023 year. I mean, 1,500 yards receiving, 89 to lead the SEC, 189 career receptions. More importantly, played all 13 games for LSU, and the Giants as a whole, as an organization, had issues with injuries, the durability, in particular on the offensive side of football. So giving Daniel Jones, at least who's going to be the incumbent quarterback going into the season, a weapon, someone to throw to on the outside is a start. And obviously, I would like to see the Giants. I'll get more into it. Start to try to build a little more along that line, because it's great to have receivers. It's great to have toys in the out, new toy, shiny toys on the outside. But you can't keep a quarterback right side up. It doesn't make much of a difference if he can get open downfield if the quarterback don't have enough time to throw it.
Anthony, I'm going to go right back to you, by the way, because now I'm going to finally go back to pick number 5, which was the Los Angeles Chargers, who at 5-12 also cleaned house and started the Jim Harbaugh era at head coach. Maybe you wanted to pass by Jim Harbaugh just bad triggers for you, Jay, possibly, if that was the case.
No. It's only because, this pick is honestly, and Anthony can kind of handle it, but this pick is honestly no surprise.
By the way, they went Joe Alt, offensive tackle Notre Dame, since I actually didn't say it. So I'm going to have Anthony go first, because he did the scouting report on Joe Alt when he was who we wanted to pick at number 6 for the Giants. Joe Alt is a guy who is by far the best player you can get at this position at the draft. 2 ways the Chargers could go when they go with the offensive tackle.
Well, and Jacob could attest to this. Jim Harbaugh likes to build his team from the inside out, and you saw, and obviously you saw the combination of that with the national championship in Michigan, with a ball control offense and dominating the opposing defenses on the ground, and in the trenches, and that's what Harbaugh loves to do. And he did it at Michigan, and he did it you go back to his NFL pro days, the San Francisco 49ers, and with the running back tangent of Frank Gore and playing off and Colin Kaepernick eventually with the RPOs. So he is a guy who does like to build his team from like the old Parcells Marshall inside out, and a strong lineman. And Joe Aldis is ranked the top lineman in this year's draft. He's a big man now, 6'9", 321 pounds. Now, a guy that size, you do wonder about his center of gravity, because it's a little hard for those big guys to bend and get down and get that low center of gravity on the line of scrimmage as far as run blocking. But he's long and limber. Great technique as far as being able to open up gaps in the run game. His father Joe was actually a Pro Bowl in the NFL. And his brother Mark Alt is in the National Hockey League. So again, we have a draft pick from an athletic family background. Last 2023 finalists for the Outland Trophy Award. First team all Associated Press All American, started all 12 games at left tackle. So immediately he gives Justin Herbert some blindside protection in that Charger offense. Here's the scouting report for NFL.com. All players a disciplined brand of football, avoiding penalties, working with fluid transitions from entry to sustain to finish as a run blocker. Capable drive blocker with the foot quickness to play on to the second level. Alt has quick hands, outstanding arm extension, promoting his ability to sustain blocks and redirect pass rushers. Good technician who carries himself with confidence from snap to snap. Clearly has the talent to become a day one starter on the left side. May have to clean up an occasional habit of leaning forward, particularly on the pass. And judging by the rabbi's face, we have a surprise pick. I'll try to finish up my point.
I'll mention it later on, but we have a very big surprise pick here.
Yeah. But maintains the speed, keeps the motor high motor. It's a great pick for the Chargers, who obviously you no longer have Keenan Allen in the offense. Harbaugh might want to go to more of a run control offense, run first offense. That may actually help Justin Herbert. Herbert is a guy who puts up a lot of big numbers, but And we've seen the past with the Chargers. The big numbers are not translating into wins, unfortunately for Herbert. So this is it's a good pick for the Chargers overall. But it also shows Jim Harbaugh sticking to his mantra and mentality of building his teams from the inside out.
Yeah, and go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, look, Anthony, is right. The one of the Harbaugh is very much of the, you build from the trenches outward. One of the knocks, if you will, on JJ McCarthy is, they don't know how well he's going to do under pressure in the NFL because he rarely saw a pass rush, while he was at Michigan. And that's largely due to the fact that Harbaugh is very big on, making sure that he has guys who can handle pass pro as well as be road graders in the run game. And when you have a franchise quarterback like Justin Herbert, the goal is to A, keep him upright, and 2, keep him on the field, 2 areas where the Chargers have struggled with him. Now, you can say that, considering they lost both of their starting receivers, in the offseason, that they could have, they should have taken, a Dunze here, instead of Alt. But if you know who Jim Harbaugh is, this is not a surprise at all. The best offensive lineman, arguably, in the draft, legitimate blindside protector who can step in at left tackle from day one and be the blindside protector for a franchise quarterback. It's a no-brainer pick. You are the Chargers, and Jim Harbaugh is your head coach.
There is a thing that I saw in The Athletic, and I think this is a very good description of Joe Alt, and I love this. Jake Matthews and Nate Solder's body. And I think that is just perfect. That is so perfect because the guy has everything you would want in an offensive tackle. He can develop in your scheme, and he only got penalized, I believe, 4 times in 3 seasons in South Bend. 4 times in 3 seasons, didn't miss a game in college, 33 consecutive starts, has some natural ability that I think will really help Justin Herbert in the near future. However, this is the case of the chicken and the egg. It's one of those fairy tales. I would like to read you the Chargers wide receiver depth chart according to ESPN.com right now. Joshua Palmer and Simi Fehoko. Believe I got that correct. That's it. That's the list. You lost Keenan Allen to the Chicago Bears. You lost Mike Williams to the New York Jets. You have Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins in your backfield. Yes, you have the Baltimore combination, and now in LA, you need to help that offense. You need to basically make sure that Justin Herbert doesn't have to do 100 things at once. And I just don't get it at all. I like Alt. I think it's the right pick, and they would have picked Neighbors if they had the pick, obviously, before Dunze, or maybe they would have picked the Dunze. I don't know, but I think it's a good pick. But I think there's a reason why this was a wide receiver heavy draft. You have special talents over here, and you need some in Los Angeles. You might have some of the worst skill positions in the entire league. By the way, the shock on my face was Anthony's picks, by the way, are going all tonight. Like all of the people in segments. Because Michael Penix Jr. actually went at number 8, and we're going to talk about that later on in the show. And I want to talk about it in relation to JJ McCarthy, because I think that'll be very interesting. I like to hold off on this because this is a discussion I want to save for the quarterback segment, because I really
100%. But
I think it's going to be something I really want to talk about, just because of the fact that McCarthy was built a lot in the last few weeks. It's like excellent pro day, excellent stuff, and it turned out no one has really traded up for McCarthy at 5.
People need to stop, and this is a pet peeve of mine, Rabbi, and you've heard me talk about this on draft shows as long as we've been doing them together. People need to stop making a big deal out of pro days.
Pro day is basically tailor-made.
Right. They don't mean anything. Anyone who puts an undue amount of hype or attribution to a guy wowing, NFL personnel, people or coaches at a pro day where everything is scripted, There's no one rushing the passer. There's no one covering the receivers. It is not an indication of anything. You know what a pro day is, guys? It's the personal combine of that particular players at school. And to me, the combine is not anything you should ever use as a defining criteria. Stop. You're not in this to draft, got measurables. You're here to draft football players, okay? And enough. And that's why. Why, Zach? Why? Here's the latest example of why a pro day doesn't mean jack. 2 words. Jets fans will be getting acid in their stomach for the rest of their lives. 2 words on why pro days don't mean anything. Zach Wilson.
We'll talk about
the Jets. I'll say this.
I would say this. And I got to tell you, I got to tell you this though. And we'll get to him in our wide receiver section. But so far, Chicago has killed it in the first round. They had guys. They brought in guys, 2 veteran guys to play wide receiver to give Caleb Williams someone to throw to. They just drafted the guy who's going to be his future pitch and catch partner. A guy who on a lot of people's list was one of the best wide receivers in the nation last year. And we'll talk about
Odunze a little bit. Let's talk about the Giants' rest of the draft now, because ESPN needs to fill a lot of time with predictions and people saying names. I will not talk about that in a second. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Please let me talk. Giants have 6 picks, and as of right now, they have 1 in each of the first 6 rounds. Jay, where do they go in the later rounds, and what do you have in mind for them?
The pick for me later on, and this is in the second round, is Jaden Hicks, safety out of Washington State. Losing X-Man to free agency is a big hole in the Giants defense in the secondary at the safety position. Hicks is a guy I think who would be a good fit for them in the second round. This is a guy who can play each level. There's 3 different types of safeties. You got your center fielder, you got your box guy, and you got your Swiss Army knife. I think he can be a bit of all 3. Guy played cornerback in high school, so he can cover tight, and he covers tight ends well in college. Has a feel for zone Ds, understand how to, which you're going to have. The Giants are going to play a lot of with Shane Bowen. And he understands how to take advantage of mistakes by a quarterback. He had a really big pick 6 against Colorado State last year. He's really good at disguising his intentions pre-snap, can bring the noise as a blitzer. There's a lot of people who the comp for him is Mike Hilton out of Cincinnati, former Steeler. So, he's interesting. The thing with him is he needs to kind of improve his tackling. Usually misses from dropping his eye level and prematurely leaving his feet, something you can't really do at the NFL level. He played strong safety in Washington State's 4-2-5 was base, and he was asked to play deep half, deep middle, in the box and over the slot. So he is a Swiss Army knife. I think he'll be a great fit for the Giants in that role. There's a lot of people who believe that he's the top safety prospect in the draft. Decent speed, and this is ultimately a need spot for the Giants. I think he'll be there at that spot. And I think that's, kind of where they need to go, to fill a need.
Anthony?
I like to see the Giants add some depth to the defensive line and got the Mason Smith, who's a defensive tackle for LSU. 6'5", 306. You think about this, the Giants have obviously all pro Dexter Lawrence has a defensive tackle, but they lost Ashawn Robinson, and that is a need that the Giants is going to have to address and add some depth to the defensive line. But since they obviously add with Burns and Thibodeau being the bookends to a pass rush, they're going to need some depth of run stopping. We played 12 games last season, 20 tackles, 4.5 for loss, and 2.5 sacks. Former 5-star signee can play low levels to strike, leverage blockers off balance. Upper body power to extend and set the edge when in position. The effective club move to rid himself on a blocker's force. One thing that is a concern, though, is his durability. He missed extensive time with a shoulder injury in 2021, suffered a season-ending ACL injury with an ACL tear in 2022. Has to work on a little bit more discipline, has a pass rushing But as a run stopper, I think he'd be a great fit for the Giants as far as uh, being able to be part of that rotation, or spell Lawrence, or even line up on the opposite of him. In the Giants' 3-4 hybrid defense, obviously they do change things up quite a bit. So I would like to see the Giants really think defense later on in the draft. Obviously, with Jay, safety is another concern. And as I mentioned, the Giants is a roster full of holes. You can go either way. But I'd like to see them add a little more to the defensive line.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's funny because I think guys, I'm a big skill positions guy. I know everyone's like, get the offensive line, get the offensive line. How are you gonna? And then I'm like, you need players to be able to get yourself to the position that you are. And I think there's no better player that is really lower in the draft board for a lot of people, rating as a 6th, 7th round talent than Dylan Johnson from Washington. I know there's a lot of people that just looked at the injury history, look at him being a smaller type of guy, as a guy who is just going to be just kind of a guy with, like I said, the injury history, guy who's been beat up in his last 2 seasons, but he has been everywhere. He was in Mississippi State with Mike Leach, the late Mike Leach's air raid offense. He all of his 100-yard rushing games came against ranked opponents last year. He has vision. He has vision that I think that it can really help him. And I know a lot of people think he might be a complimentary role. Like I said, this is a late pick. This is a gravy pick. I'm actually going deep into the draft with them. But he can work in zone run concepts, and he won't second guess himself. The guy has confidence galore. NFL running back coaches will love his toughness too. And I think overall, with Devin Singletary in the backfield last year, and I'll tell you what, Singletary had a lot of time in the rushing game last year, and he had a lot of touches. I think having someone like Dylan Johnson as a backup, learning at the feet of an experienced running back, might work out. I love to see his game. I love seeing his game at the level, and I thought he was one of the reasons why Washington didn't do a lot in the national championship game, because they were hobbled most of the time in that game, and Dylan Johnson is the main reason why. I think that would be a pick that I would like to see them go for late in the draft.
Yeah, I can't, that's a really good pick at that spot, Rabbi. Depth in the running back room is something the Giants need. And honestly, I think the skill position players in that Washington offense last year, all of whom, you talk about all 3 receivers, you talk about Johnson, you talk about Penix, these guys all should be able to, I think they all have skill sets that translate well to the NFL level, whether they're all starters from day one or need a year to, a redshirt year to develop and kind of learn, the idiosyncrasies of the NFL and, a change of offense. But I definitely think all of them are NFL ready. So it's a good, if he's around at that point, yeah, I definitely agree. You go get him.
All right, I'm going to throw a curveball here, and I want to get to the quarterback portion of our segment because the Jets haven't picked yet. If you didn't know, they traded back 1 spot to number 11, and a bunch of the people who've already gotten picked is in this segment. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the quarterback position, as you might have seen in the beginning of this show, kind of important. I know, breaking news. If you pick the right QB like the Texans did with CJ Stroud, you can bounce into the upper echelon. If you pick a bad QB from 2023 like Bryce Young, you can stay the Panthers. Womp womp. Big swing. So we have some quarterbacks that have been picked. One in my case that hasn't been picked because I like to swim against the grain. Anthony, you have Michael Penix Jr. He went number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. That is what my mouth was shocked about beforehand.
Yeah,
they just picked up Kirk Cousins in free agency. In the words of the great Chris Berman, wow.
Yeah, it's a stunner because I know a lot of mock picks. They had Penix falling to maybe in the late teens to the Las Vegas Raiders, where a lot of people felt he'd been a big fit. But
Yeah.
if you're going to pick
A
Michael
lot of
Penix,
people associated him, by the way, with the Raiders almost the entire draft.
yeah, I mean, if you're going to pick Penix Jr., it's only two things. If you're going to eventually trade him at some point in this draft, or you're going to have him basically be a pupil and sit behind a guy you just gave a big contract to in free agency. So this is like I said, I'm a little surprised by this pick by the Atlanta Falcons, mainly because I would have thought with Kirk Cousins being in Atlanta, you would probably try to get him a receiver or maybe some weapons to fiddle around with. But Penix Jr., he's 6'2", 216 quarterback out of Washington. One of the Maxwell Award, second team All Associate Press All American, second team All 12 Pac-12 conference, finalist for the Heisman. Led college football with 4,900 yards passing, 36 touchdowns. Started all 15 games. And all 15 games. Went 27-51 for 255 in the national championship game against Michigan. He's 24-year-old rookie. He had a history of injuries at University of Indiana before he transferred. One of the biggest things, and this is one of the reasons he was associated with the Raiders, is his ability to throw the deep ball. And obviously, when you thought going to Vegas, you immediately lined him up with Devontae Adams, and that was kind of the connection that people were making. His ability, his points, and obviously you saw in the championship game, he can sense pressure. He can take some hits, but stays in there, keeps the composure just enough. So I guess that I'm kind of speechless because I did not expect this pick that the Panthers to be picked at number 8 and going to a team that just signed a big contract deal with a free agent quarterback and Kirk Cousins, who, by the way, maybe the only other thing I can think of is maybe they're worried about Kirk Cousins coming off an injury. So, like I said, I mean,
Penix has been injured the whole entire time,
yeah,
too, by the way.
It's a little bit of a head scratcher as far as this pick was concerned. And I like to hear your thoughts about whether the Falcons, train of thought may have been making this pick.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I mean, look, here's the thing about Michael Penix Jr. I mean, obviously, he's got all the arm talent in the world. The question is going to be, is the reason Washington's offense was so successful because of his skill set, or did he put up those big numbers because of who he had to throw to? And we talked about it in the giant, just the last segment, when Rabbi was talking about the running back, 3 NFL level wide receivers he had to throw to, all of whom are going to go within the first 2 days of the draft, and the things that you can, the things that you like about him, very accurate deep ball. Live arm, throws vertically and horizontally, can drive the football without stepping into his throws. So you got that. Great pacing on posts and deep overroutes, understands how to find the vulnerable matchups, and small windows do not deter him, something that's going to be key. And we talk about it in the NFL all the time. He has a good feel of where the blitz is coming from. Decent job throwing on the move. The guy does not get too sped up, but the thing that you worry about with him is that he doesn't have picture perfect mechanics. Occasionally he has issues with weight transfer, going from front foot, back foot to front foot and so forth, issues with release points. Sometimes that messes with his rhythm and his accuracy. There are scouts who feel he misses too many layups when he feels rushed, doesn't throw with consistent anticipation. And this is a big thing I brought up there in the championship game. He does not throw well over the middle. At least he did not in college. And he tends to wait a little bit too long. Can he find a way to create, to get that finesse that's required when you're putting the ball in between levels of the defense? Here's the other thing. You talk about the money downs. He's just 42% of his third down dropbacks last year resulted in a first down. He rarely had to worry about pressure. There were several games where he didn't get touched once. He was only sacked 16 times in a total of 28 starts at Washington. Yeah, you got the durability. That's going to be a thing. And yeah, he's 24 years old. So in these days, is that too old? He was going to be a controversial pick, no matter where you go. He's about as polarizing as it gets. And Rabbi, you said it. The difference between the top two and everybody after that, in some shape, manner, or form, is a polarizing pick. You worry.
I said top, by the way, I said top two, May, and then everybody after that. Right. I think May is not in the same category as the others, by the way.
No, and you can clearly see, and there's a lot of people who believe that you've got Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels up here. You got May and McCarthy here, and then it's Penix and Nix. There are a lot of people who think that Penix is more NFL ready now than May or McCarthy. And that's purely based on his ability to process, but part of that is having played in one offense for most of his career. You got to, people talk about, what he did at Washington, but Kalen Bower was his offensive coordinator at Indiana before they both went to Seattle. So, the question is in Atlanta, he doesn't have the same amount of weapons to throw to, unless they figure out, unless he's the key that unlocks, their tight end and Drake London at wide receiver. And they also have Bijan Robinson. So technically he has weapons. So are they at the same level? Is the scheme right for him? It's going to be interesting to see how he fits, because University of Washington scheme is very different than what he's going to in Atlanta. So it's going to be a question of how well he fits with that scheme. Overall, might be, seems like it's a good pick, but again, too soon to tell. And again, for his sake, I hope he does get to wait a year behind.
And he will. This time I can tell you he probably will. By the way,
there's no better intern. That's a hell of an internship to have if the guy you're learning from is Kirk Cousins.
Honestly,
yeah, professionalism. Yes, absolutely.
He could wait 2 years in the position. They could actually do more of a Green Bay / Kansas City type deal and actually make him wait a little bit longer. You saw the product of Jordan Love last year after waiting so much time on there. I think you can do that with Penix. By the way, you forgot to mention the biggest problem. Man has had 2 ACL surgeries and has had season-ending surgeries every year he was in Indiana. He caught a lot of lightning in a bottle when he was in Washington. And that happens, yes, it might be the team, but he also had a little lesser of a team in 2022, and his numbers were just as good. But there's a lot of things that is interesting, but there's a lot of inconsistencies about him. And yes, I understand. The one thing that really annoys me the most, and I understand why people do it, is the fact that, he's too old to be a starter as a quarterback. You want experience, now you finally got it. The transfer portal has actually helped get more experienced guys. Quarter, I don't know what that was, but a lot of experience, experiences in that position. All right. Jay, you picked JJ McCarthy, who now becomes the second Michigan quarterback to be picked in the first round of the common NFL draft. And if you don't know who the first one is, your card is taken away.
Wait, go say that again.
Who is the only other quarterback in Michigan history to be picked in the first round of the common NFL draft?
Oh, Jim Harbaugh.
Thank you. All right. I was saying, your card would have been taken away immediately if you didn't know that, but obviously you do. JJ, the Vikings traded up one spot to get him at number 10. You said that there's a little bit of a gap, and you put him on the same level as May. I disagree completely, and I'll mention why in a second, but tell me what you saw in McCarthy in Michigan that makes him good for the pros.
Look, I mean, here's the thing about JJ. The big thing with JJ, And the thing that is being held against him and is that unlike May, unlike Caleb, unlike Jaden, unlike Penix, those guys played in pass-happy offenses, and they put up ridiculous numbers. JJ McCarthy wasn't asked to carry this team. Granted, they put a little more on his shoulders this year, and he led them to the national championship. This is a guy who's accurate at all levels of the field. He's solid in play action, completed 76.3% of his passes. And he took advantage where the opportunities were because defenses sold out to stop Blake Corum in the running game. The things that, you wonder is, does he have enough on tape, on film? And that's my concern. In 15 games, only 370 dropbacks. That's 24 per game. Michigan ran a pro-style offense. They had power running games. They ran two of their staples, power and duo, which are NFL run game concepts. From shotgun, a lot of shifts, a lot of motion, a lot of complementary play action. So he ran concepts that he'll run in the NFL, but he did not have to carry a team with his arm like the other quarterbacks in this class did. So here's the thing, and I'm just going to kind of go over I'm just going to give you my bottom line on McCarthy, and I'm going to let you guys weigh in. I mean, I saw him plenty. I like what I see. I definitely think he has potential. But after, rewatching some of his film today, things that I was concerned about and I spoke of during the national championship game preview kind of came back to the surface of my head. Now, like I said, overall, he does not have the amount of throws on film the other quarterbacks in this draft, but that's a byproduct of the type of offense that Michigan ran. He makes good decisions when he's on schedule. Most of his throws were on time and on point when he's on schedule. He can make every throw, short, intermediate, downfield, sideline, over the middle. He can create a little bit when he has to, though. I mean, we saw he can make plays with his legs. He didn't have to do it too much. Wasn't in a lot of those situations. The big issue is accuracy. And you're saying, well, Jay, he's a 70% completion guy. But that's the thing that you worry about in the NFL is that was largely due to seemingly every throw being 100 miles an hour. Learning to change speeds, apply the right touch on certain throws is something he has to learn how to do. I spoke at various points during the season about his issues regarding to throwing his receivers open, something he did not do consistently, especially on crossing routes where he put the ball behind instead of in front of his target. Now, that's going to be a problem at the NFL level if he can't learn to change speeds on his pitches to make it easier for his pass catchers to catch his passes. He'd probably do well in a situation where he could learn for a year. The question, to me, he's not ready to be QB1 on day one, in my opinion. That's based on what I've seen over the last 2 years, a lot of which has been corroborated by some NFL folks. The thing that that the big thing about him is, he can run play. He's going to run plays. An NFL playbook's not going to be, new to him because he was running something similar. However, his mechanics still need a little bit of work. He doesn't always align his body correctly, especially when he's throwing to the left. Rips everything. He needs to correct that. So, look, the question will become are the Vikings going to allow him to sit for a year behind Sam Darnold? That's the thing, because you're in a situation where Darnold, as solid as Darnold was as a backup in San Francisco, the narrative that's going to follow him in Minneapolis is not going to be that. It's going to be the Jets situation. Okay. So it's a question of whether or not, how long it's going to take for that. Does Darnold have to have one bad game on week one and then the chance for McCarthy are going to start? Look, the kid knows how to do the right thing with the ball. Third down numbers, 67% completion percentage, 9.2 yards attempt, 6 TDs, no picks on third down. This is a guy who on the money downs made money for the Michigan team. I just think there's a lot. He's a little more raw again, because he didn't have to do as much as the other quarterbacks. So the question becomes, is this a guy who's ready to take on throwing the ball 30 odd times a game, being the focus of the offense? Is he ready for that? In my opinion, after watching every game for the last 2 years, my answer is no, not yet. And I know this is going to be tough for Viking fans to accept because they lost Cousins. They replaced him with Darnold. That's obviously a step down. I know you want to believe the kid's the franchise quarterback, the next coming of Fran Tarkenton or whoever. The kid needs some time to adapt to this, to what it's going to mean to play quarterback at the NFL level. So I know it's going to pain y'all to not get him out there day one. You can't screw this up. Is O'Connell's offense quarterback friendly? Yeah. Is it potentially a good fit for JJ? Yeah. But it's different than the scheme he ran in Michigan enough that you need to let this kid have a year, let him learn, let him get comfortable. It worked for Mahomes. Let it work here.
Yeah, but the difference is Mahomes was a raw quarterback and they had Alex Smith in front of him. That's the problem. The problem with all of these teams, ironically enough, I actually may like the Falcons pick better because Atlanta picked a guy who can start immediately, and nobody is going to mention the guy in back of him unless there's an injury. And guess what? Injuries do happen in the NFL now and then you're forced to put him in. So that's the thing. But no, okay. My problem is, and you mentioned the biggest thing, he only threw the ball. I believe there's only less than 800 throws on tape for a guy who started almost his entire career in Michigan over those last few years. And also, I don't know how he does like off schedule, because did you see any tapes of him? Yeah, he almost never adjusted the line because Michigan's scheme basically can read what you're going to do because you asked him to do something and he does it. That's exactly what he did in Michigan. But I think his leadership skills are huge. I know intangibles are something that you never ever want to say means something, but that's a big thing as well. He had a very good fourth. You mentioned the third and fourth down. But he's kind of he's a point guard It's not a game manager. It's a point guard. No. He could be a Steve Nash type quarterback. He could be a Brock Purdy type quarterback, and I think that's not an insult. He's a guy, if you give him enough weapons, he can do his thing. I do think he'll start this year because I just don't like Sam Darnold as your option. I know, but he's young enough that you can possibly wait a little bit. But I do think he's going to get some licks this year, which is kind of unfortunate because I don't mind him here. I'm glad Minnesota didn't trade up to number 5 to get him. That was the right move to do the one move up. Although I'm curious of why you would trade with a Jets team that had no issue with the quarterback position whatsoever, unless the Raiders or Broncos, who also did pick a quarterback, which I want to talk about later in the show, did themselves. That might be why, but it's a very weird situation. Anthony, I'm going to let you get the last word on this, and then I'm going to skip my Spencer Rattler analysis. I know you really wanted to hear that. I'm so sorry to get to the Jets pick. But Anthony, J.J. McCarthy, different kind of breed at this position and kind of got his stock hyped over the last few weeks. And what do you think?
I'm with Jay here. I think he has like the tools to be a good NFL quarterback, just not right now. And I gotta say, we're in this age where when we draft the quarterback in the first round, you gotta get him out there right away, and the fan base want to believe that they have the franchise quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. But that's not always the case. And Sam Darnold's a capable quarterback. You just signed Aaron Jones, so you have a running back, if he can stay healthy, a running game to lean on. That was kind of J.J. McCarthy's strength in Michigan. He did, the scheme, the offensive line, the running game was very dominant. He didn't really have to do a whole lot, but he showed that he can make the throws, and he showed against Ohio State on a couple of occasions in big games. He does have the points to go out and make throws and win games for you. I do feel like I feel like right now, the best thing for him to do would be to just be the backup, the QB2 on a depth chart for right now, and to kind of learn the offense and for the Vikings to be patient. I mean, there's a reason why you draft them. You want him as the quarterback for the future, just not right now. And the Vikings, I think it would be a huge mistake to throw him out there as a starter right out of the gate, let alone within the first 7-8 games of the season, and 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 you have an offense that just maybe changed the philosophy as far as being predominantly pass to be more of a run-heavy offense, which could actually help McCarthy down the line as a young quarterback. But yeah, I do think he should be the number 2 guy on the depth chart and just learn for the time being.
All right, let's put the tape in the VCR. Let's rewind. Back to the Jets pick. The New York Jets, the other MetLife Stadium tenant, were very hospitable like their co-tenants, as they also had double-digit losses in 2023, going 7-10. They didn't make too many changes either in coaching or quarterback, while starting QB. As Jets lightning bolt punching bag, center of the dartboard, Zach Wilson was traded on Monday to the Denver Broncos in a late-round swap. How will we ever forget the Wilson era? Well, easily, like now. Well, in their post-AZ, after Zach pick, the Jets ended up doing a trade. Going one back pick, trading with the Vikings. They gave up the 200th pick, but they get back picks 129 and 157 in return. Remember, just a one spot. What is a one spot jump or a one spot drop in this case? So at number 11, the Jets picked Olu Fashanu. I'm not saying the whole first name because the draft guy didn't have that. Thank God. Offensive tackle, Penn State. By the way, says he models his game after Andrew Thomas. I love that. Automatically, almost makes me think it's the right pick. But Anthony, right pick or wrong pick?
I would say, well, it's the right idea. I'm probably gonna go with Trey Fontanu from Washington. Who I think his versatility, his ability to play tackle and guard on a just offensive line that signed a 33-year-old Tyron Smith, who has had a hard time staying healthy in recent years. I think that would have been more of a fit because of his versatility. He's a very made play. He's a player who can start right away. Let him play Wilson center. Started first team all 12 conference team conference. Won a Joe Moore Award, given to the nation's top offensive lineman. The team's offensive power player of the year, finalists for the Polynesian College Football Player of the Year. Started all 15 games at left tackle, and like I said, the Jets, I think, and one of his biggest strength is his ability to block and zone blocking, and I think with the Jets running game, that would have been a huge asset, along with his versatility. So I probably would have gone that way as far as drafting the lineman. Like I said, right idea. Not sure if I would have gone with that. I would have gone that direction. But you guys, you might maybe agree or disagree with me on this one.
Okay.
Look, I'm an offensive guy. I'm a quarterback. I always want more weapons to throw to. So for me, and he was still on the board at this point, I would have gone with Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. And all I have to do is, like, I was looking at some of the numbers that came across in Dane Brugler's scouting report on Bowers for The Athletic. This is a guy, people talk about, you need to talk about him by not worrying about the TE in front of his name in terms of, what you do with him. This is a guy who runs really good routes, great footwork, accelerates in and out of his breaks really well, above average ball skills. He catches the ball well outside of his frame. He only has a 4.4% career drop rate. He can cleanly adjust to throws. He can high point the ball. Dangerous after the catch because of his speed and competitive nature. He averages 8.5 yards after catch per reception in college. This is a guy you can run, inline, outside. The stat on him was, this is a guy you can line up across the formation. Obviously, he was the alpha in terms of offensive weapons in Mike Bobo's scheme at UGA. 52% in the slot, 36.6 in line, which means he lined up next to the tackle, 9.5% wide. This guy can run everything. He physical positional blocker, can reach, seal, keep his man occupied, can be a lead blocker. This is a guy who was able to communicate, sniff out and communicate blitzes pre-snap. NFL scouts love his competitive mentality and the way he actually despises losing, not enjoys winning, but despises losing. Number 2 in career touchdown grabs in 26, number 3 in career catches, 175, number 4 in receiving yards, 2,538. The weaknesses to me are nitpicky. He doesn't have what you would call the desired size for an inline tight end, because he's only going to be around 245 pounds. But you know what? That's not what you're paying Brock Bowers to do. So you're not paying him, to take on defensive ends one by one. That's not what you're bringing him in for. You're bringing this guy in because he is the first 2-time winner of the John Mackey Award as the nation's top tight end. He's got short area burst and long speed. He can run, like I said, he can run all the routes. This is a guy who can be a home run threat as a tight end. To me, the key with a guy like him, and the comp that people, that Brugler used was George Kittle. The key for that is if he lands with a play caller prepared to feature his unique and versatile talent. Would that necessarily have been the Jets because Paul Hackett's the offensive coordinator? And, we're all we're all really high on that guy. Ability to be
Nathaniel Hackett, by the way.
Sorry, Paul's his father. Sorry, little Freudian slip there. But here's the thing, though. The reason I wanted Bowers is because Aaron Rodgers, if he is healthy and is back under center, has shown that he forget about Hackett, he knows how to make good use of a tight end who can actually catch the football. It's kind of why I wanted to go with Bowers here. Though, considering you're looking for a blindside protector, for your 40-year-old quarterback of the present and whoever's going to replace him down the road. This kid out of Penn State is not a bad choice. You'd like to see him use his body better in terms of angling. You'd like to see him, spend less time being upright in the run game. But the thing is that this guy overall, is he a bit of a work in progress? Yeah, but you know what? The Jets can afford it right now. He's above average in pass protection. He's got good body quickness. He can anchor versus power. He pays attention to detail, and he projects as a long-term starting left tackle in the NFL. Brugler says potential Pro Bowl upside. We would see. The guy had a first-round grade, the second-ranked offensive tackle on the board. This is the kind of guy that you can take, considering, and kind of develop over time. So I understand why they took him, again, build from the offensive line out. I get it. It's definitely a need. I felt getting extra weapons was also a need. So
ironically enough, we mentioned the guy who will be Brock Bowers' offensive coordinator now in the NFL earlier. We kind of bashed him. It's Luke Getsy, who is now the offensive coordinator of the Las Vegas Raiders, who ended up picking him 2 spots later at number 13. For me, there's such a fine line after you get past Joe Alt between, and I'm sorry I said his name incorrectly before, Fashudu, not Fashanu. We'll mention the next one also later on in JC Latham. And honestly, Lisa Fuaga is also a good choice as well. The other one being Amarius Mims from Georgia, by the way.
All
But
five first round grades.
all 5 guys have first round grades, and all overall are within 8 picks. So if you get a run on offensive tackles, that's why. And you got a large, big bone frame in this guy from Oregon State. He started 25 games his last few seasons. The range is not what you want there, but I think one thing that I like him for better than Fashanu from Penn State, which again, for me, huge. There's no real difference. I think this was the need spot for the Jets because you can have all the weapons you want, but if you can't keep Aaron Rodgers healthy, it doesn't matter. You need to keep him upright. And that team has Garrett Wilson on there. And I think one of the things that I think about this team is you need the right offensive coordinator and you need the right system where you can not only you feature Browers, but you can feature Browers as a co-number 1 target, kind of like George Kittle in San Francisco. There's no number 1 target on that team. It's Ayuk, Debo, and George Kittle. They're pretty much tied for number 1 in my book. Sam Laporta in Detroit is the same way. I think Amon-Ra is number 1, but Laporta is also a big threat. I don't know where Bowers would have fit in terms of scheme and, again, getting the ball. I think you could have had a situation like Kyle Pitts, who is still a generational talent, who still has all the skills. They just can't get him the ball enough, and he also can get injured very quickly. So I don't think I'll have that with Bowers. But overall, back to Fuaga for a second, it's a guy who can play every position. Like, some people think he's best at guard. Others want to keep him to right tackle. He is a plug-and-play starter in the NFL who has cross strength. He might get beaten a little more in the beginning. And he was also flagged for a bunch of false starts last year, too. He was flagged for 6, but I like somebody who knows that he's going to have to go into different positions in the NFL at different spots. And I think that's why he could have been a good pick over here. But overall, this is the spot. This is what I think the Jets needed to do in this position, because the main goal is Aaron Rodgers can't play 4 snaps in 2024. Aaron Rodgers needs to play as close to a full season as possible. And the way you do that is to have an offensive line that can keep him protected. You also need to do that for the running back too, but you have a running back at Breece Hall that can overcome a bad offensive line. Again, we're past the days now of what we had beforehand. You need something to keep him healthy. And even though Rodgers is immobile, having a good offensive line will do just that.
I agree with you, Rabbi, in principle. My only thing is that I would have taken either one of, the 2 guys that you mentioned, you and Anthony, as opposed to this kid who's a little bit more of a project. That's all I'm saying. And in terms of Bowers, here's the other thing. Like you said, Garrett Wilson needs some help. And I think Bowers would have been able to having a tight end who can work.
And Mike Williams too, by the way.
All other parts of the field, I think would have taken some of the coverage issues, the double teaming away from Garrett Wilson. And here's the thing. If you had, once Mike Williams is healthy, you have Mike Williams on one side, Garrett Wilson on the other, and Bowers in the middle. To me, I think Aaron Rodgers would have loved having the opportunity to have those weapons in front of him. I don't argue the fact that offensive tackle protecting a 40-year-old guy coming off an Achilles is a big deal and a big need. Like I said, I just don't know that I would have gone with this kid as opposed to the 2 guys that you mentioned.
Like I said, I think it's almost apples and oranges when you get to that spot. There's really no comparison from me personally. That's just me. All right. What's that? You want more Jets? Come to the right place. The Jets will have, of course, they have more picks now. I believe they will have a 3rd, 3 4th-round picks, a 5th, and 2 6th-round picks now after the Zach Wilson trade and the trade tonight. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that. I had a script that was made before the freaking Vikings trade. And yes, the general manager, albeit maybe name only, is still Joe Douglas, not Aaron Rodgers. I didn't see Aaron Rodgers in the war room tonight, so I think his job is safe. Jay, how will the Jets treat any of their picks going forward?
Well, I mean, again, for me, I'm going safety. To me, the 3rd, that's where they should utilize their 3rd round pick. And the guy I'm looking at is Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota. This is a guy who has, rangy athleticism, can make plays from various alignments in the secondary, sees the field well, has good whole field vision. He looks like a wide receiver at the catch point. Guy had more interceptions than any player in Minnesota history. 0 coverage penalties over the last 2 seasons. Guy is solid in run support, has short area bursts from working downhill. Knows how to tackle, played on special teams. You got to know how to tackle if you're going to play on special teams. So to me, that's a plus. He, quote, learned how to practice and watch film from Antoine Winfield Jr., who was his teammate in 2019. This is a guy who was directing the traffic on defense. So you got leadership there. A little bit of tightness, transitions could be an issue. Deep responsibilities occasionally can get him stuck on his heel and allow too many completions to be happening in front of him. So you kind of want to see some better urgency, as he closes as a top-down defender, clean up some timing as a blitzer. Guy wasn't asked to do a lot of man-to-man on slot receivers, so we'll see how it goes with that. At the end of the day, guy was a 4-year starter. Interchangeable safety, and I'm a big fan of interchangeable safety. So the guy played single high and split zone in a mixed coverage scheme for the Gophers. He was originally a cornerback, so got some coverage, DNA there, led the Gophers in interceptions each of the last 4 seasons, 13 overall. Overall, conservative tendencies in coverage, but this is a 4-down player with a solid skill set. Playmaking, range, toughness against the run. To me, and according to Brugler's scouting report, and here's the key here, he's ideally suited for a quarters-based cover 2 scheme in the NFL. He's also going to be a core special teamer. Giants are big on guys who can play special teams, and Shane Bowen, again, is not a heavy man coverage type of defensive coordinator. So I think this is a good fit. And as Daniel Jeremiah kind of threw out in his note, Nubin's pro day testing numbers were underwhelming, but he has good size and nose for the ball and excellent hitting ability. Jeremiah suspects that he'll be a better NFL player than he is an athletic tester. And you know how I feel about athletic testing. Don't lock, stock, and barrel it. Look at the film. On film, this is a guy who is ideally suited to be a safety in the Giants defense.
Anthony, you're also going safety.
Yeah, for the I think you mean Jets, Jay. You said the Giants a couple of times.
Sorry, Jets. My bad. My bad.
You know, I got confused. So I was like, wait, I thought we were with the Giants.
My bad. Though obviously the Jets don't play a lot of man-to-man either. No danger of us, channeling our inner Bill Raftery with either of the New York team defenses.
It happens. I'm going to go defense, safety as well, but I'm looking at Dominic Hampton and the safety out of Washington.
Ooh, you going later round?
Yeah, I'm going later round, maybe day 2, day 3 guy. Looking at his stats from last year, honorable mention for all Pac-12 conference, led the team with 109 tackles, started all 15 games, 2 interceptions, and 7 pass defending. When you think about the Jets, they lost Jordan Whitehead, so obviously there's a void at safety that needs to be filled. Hampton's a big, fast, long player. Defensive coordinators can actually work with him. He's comfortable, has a read and react high safety guy, then in man coverage. As you say, Jay, the Jets do not play a lot of man coverage, so that might be right up his wheelhouse. He's great at run support. Has to clean up his technique. He can't be a little erratic. Running inside the 2 AB gaps and maybe taking some bad angles or tackles. That's something that he may have to clean up a little bit. 6'7" wingspan, so that's huge as far as defending the deep ball and cover 2, and cover 3, being able to fill the gaps and being able to track down a runner to the outside. But it has long strides. Wide flowing tackle net when locked in. when he's locked in, he's an amazing tackler. Obviously, with the 100 tackles, can't be a little ragdoll. But at 6'2", 215, and obviously, I'm a big fan. I grew up on those Giants and Jet teams from the early 2000s when they had the big defensive backs that made a hard time for receivers to get open downfield. And I was a guy who grew up on particularly a guy like Greg Jackson for the Giants, who played on the Giants Super Bowl 25 team. A guy who was a combo safety who can place the pass, but also was a great run defender as well as supporter. And with Dominic Hampton, he has the abilities to be able to be both of those, to be able a guy who can defend the pass but stops the run as well. And I think that would be a big game for a Jets defense that's always been that was a strong point the last 3 seasons, obviously. But with Whitehead gone, they need to if he doesn't start right away, if he couldn't start right away, he would definitely be a guy that can play in a nickel and dime situation, has a slot cover guy. So that's who I hope that the Jets will go that direction if he's available. He does show some versatility in the pass, in defending the pass, and that is right up with the Jets wheelhouse.
So earlier in the Jets segment, I said that offensive linemen, you need to keep your quarterback healthy, and you may need to forego a chance to get a weapon every now and then. I'm going to completely contradict myself like most analysts do and say, you know what? Why not get another weapon for the Giants? So I'm going wide receiver like they just did because I think this team needs a kind of reset. And with the 3rd round pick, let's go with the guy who so I want to get on a small rant here. We applauded the NCAA for giving Reggie Bush's Heisman back this week. It was a great moment. But then remember all the shit that the NCAA has done in the past, like almost denying a guy who wanted to be near his family and had a ton of mental health challenges, and it needed to get a possible lawsuit to the NCAA, governor of North Carolina getting involved to finally get Tez Walker to go and play his final season at North Carolina. He was 3rd team All-ACC, led the team in receiving TDs, and also, missed 4 games because of that. But he kept practicing on the scout team, and despite the fact that he has bounced everywhere, he's bounced from North Carolina Central, Tennessee State. He didn't even play North Carolina Central because of the pandemic, and Kent State. He is a guy who has a ton of vertical separation, even though he only had has a lot of route cuts, amazing ball tracking skills, and he has the same kind of build that they just got with Malik Neighbors at the 6th pick. He just doesn't have the numbers in college, but he has a lot of job finishing catches, and he was the reason why Drake May is where he is in this draft too. Just kind of like how Malik Neighbors kind of helped out his quarterback in LSU. So he does have a limited route tree. He does produce very little after the catch, but this is a guy in Tez Walker who can become a vertical stretch receiver, and with time, it can't be a Jalen Hyatt situation. You're going to need to be calm. You're going to need to be patient, and you're going to be able to get the most out of a guy with a tremendous upside. I think Tez Walker is a good pick for the New York Giants, 3rd, 4th rounds. You're going to get some value in there, and that's what I want to see. I want to see value in skill positions because at the wide receiver and running back, you can get those positions to develop even quicker than you think. So that's why I think that's the right pick. All right. Behind every woman is a great man. I'm sorry, that's Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. But behind every man is a great woman. And behind every great QB is a great wide receiver. Josh Allen was Stephon Diggs. Patrick Mahomes with, well, Travis Kelce is actually a tight end, so that doesn't really qualify in the second, even though, and Daniel Jones with, this went south really quickly. All right, all kidding aside, as we continue on this, Anthony, there are some gems in this 2024 NFL draft, all of them who have not even been picked yet as of this sentence right now. So, Anthony, there was another guy in LSU that got the numbers that got this team to where it was. And that's why Jaden Daniels was the highest. All of the wide receivers, I think.
Yeah.
Another one.
Yeah, Brian Thomas is still available on the draft board. You mentioned the other guy, LSU. Third team All Associate Press All American, second team All SEC. Led college football with 17 receiving touchdowns and played in all 13 games. With 12 starts, 1,177 yards, 17.3 yards per catch on 16 receptions. A pure combination of size, length, and speed with experience working inside and out. Thomas occasionally goes through the motions of route runner, but the bend, athleticism, and speed needed to get better are all in the toolbox. Elusive against the press and can uncover quickly underneath, but still needs to improve intermediate routes and a little more physicality required to become very athletic. Some of his strength is his good stealing clear pass, press hands up, getting off the line of scrimmage. Abilities to bend hips and as far as technique and route running. Outstanding ball tracker. So the deep ball is definitely part of his game as well. He's somebody that you can play inside as a slot receiver, someone who can play on the outside as well. So it'd be interesting to see who's able to pick him up. He's obviously a receiver who can come in and maybe start right away, depending on where he goes. But Brian Thomas Jr. is still out there. 6'3", 209. It tells you how good the draft class as far as wide receivers. That I think in any other year maybe he's top 10, but right now he's still waiting, and I'm sure he's definitely a guy who's going to be picked up before the end of the first round.
And Jay, now we begin the Nepo baby portion of the program at wide receiver. Tell us about Luke McCaffrey from Rice.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, like normally, like in these segments, we kind of confine ourselves to looking at guys who are, mid to late first round or potential early second round picks. We usually don't go, we don't take a look at guys who are going to be late day 2 picks. But the intriguing thing about Luke McCaffrey is his bloodlines, and granted, if you only look at it through that prism, that the only reason we're talking about him because he's Christian's brother and and his dad played in the NFL for the Broncos for years, where you'd kind of be missing the point. Granted, NFL level athleticism is in his DNA, but this is a kid who plays physical to the football, doesn't allow crowded catch points to disrupt his focus. He had 17 contested catches in 2023, second most in D1. Guy doesn't drop the football. He's a smart, controlled route runner. He's got really good footwork. He's aggressive after the catch. NFL scouts like his personal and football character. Granted, this is a guy who his future is not, Canton, but the sideline, either in the NFL or college level. Top 10 in Rice history in catches, receiving yards, and touchdown grabs. He's only 198 pounds, so he's a little on the lean side. Only runs a 4.46 40. He does have to kind of improve his setup and his pacing with his route mechanics. Doesn't have the big twitch to help him create a lot of separation. He does catch well outside his frame. A little bit of lack of length, but he has the skill set for punt return duties, even though he didn't play much on special teams. He played in a pro style spread type of offense. His offensive coordinator is a name that you guys should be familiar with. I know I am. Marquez Tuiasosopo, who was a big time quarterback at Washington back in the day. And by that, I mean Washington Huskies, not Washington, DC. The guy, 71.2% of his snaps were in the slot over the last 2 years. This is a guy who switched from quarterback to wide receiver, reinvented himself after he transferred to Rice. Was one of just 6 D1 receivers with at least 70 catches and 13 touchdowns last year. Caught a TD in 11 of 13 games. Guy's detail oriented. A lot of people believe his experience at quarterback helped smooth his transition, with the timing and execution of his routes. He's just because he's been on the other side of them. outstanding. He's a guy whose film shows a pass catcher with outstanding focus through contact. Doesn't create a lot of clean separation or clean windows. So, it's a double-edged sword. You'd like to see him uncover a lot better. The thing is, this guy's a smart, heady type of football player. There's a lot of people who think that, he can carve out a role on special teams and, earn a roster spot as a rookie and eventually, make it into that wide receiver room. I like him, but I've always liked the Wayne Chrebet type of receivers. These are the guys who actually have to work harder. Your chain movers, your Wes Welkers, guys like that. There's potential for McCaffrey to be that kind of receiver. He's a very interesting wide receiver at this slot, even though he's likely to go late in the second day. And granted, some team may take a flyer on him just on his last name alone. But I tell you what, this kid's going to be the hardest worker in camp. So it'll be interesting to see if that pays off down the road. Well, I'm going to laugh if it's Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers who take the flyer on him. But I think he has the potential to be a solid possession slot receiver in the NFL. We'll just see how it shakes out.
It's funny because and I think we saw last year when Joey Porter Jr. got drafted by the Steelers. I think you have the last name, you're going to get a better look from the team that had that last name, especially when Chris McCaffrey is currently a 49er and not just a 49er legend. So Jay mentioned Wayne Chrebet, like size and skill. I'm always in love with that type of player. But if I'm going to have that type of player, I'm going to have that guy who had success for 4 years in Georgia, or a bunch of years in Georgia. It was 3 years in Georgia. He redshirted year one. I'm going with Lad McConkey. It's a great pick because he is a guy that now he's not going to get any bigger. He's 5'1", 186. I bet you that's a little higher than he actually is. But the man is lightning quick, polished route runner, worked in Georgia a lot. He wasn't the most catches, but he was a team leader. He only had 119 catches in his career, but he was a freshman All-SEC year one, second team All-SEC year two. He doesn't drop a lot of balls either. He can be a punt return guy if you need it. He is a student of the game. I think he could be the next Cooper Kupp if everything works out the right way. He knows coverages out there. And again, he is a guy who had such a great career in Georgia and was a team leader that I think you're going to get a lot of intangibles out there. But he has long speed. The length is a problem, obviously, but I think he's just going to be that gnat on the field that you're like, how did he get over here? And if that's the case, I think this is a wonderful pick for anybody out there. You're not going to see him go any farther than day 2. I would think not even if he gets past the second round, I will be shocked. Because I think this is a guy who can give you big numbers right away. And the best part is being picked at the end of the first round, you're going to a good team. And I think if you put a good player like that on a good team, he can immediately make an impact pretty quickly. So that's why my pick is Lad McConkey, wide receiver.
All right. So, Rabbi, you want to circle back to the final quarterback in our segment before we get into offensive line?
Nope. I think we're fine to pass that because I actually want to get to the the 6th quarterback drafted, and I'm going to get to that in our last segment. Somebody is going to talk about him because Bo Nix is a very interesting pick as well at the 12th position to the Broncos. Yeah, but I want to talk about that in the last segment because that's, I think, where it will work out the best. Okay. Though you wanted me to talk more Spencer Rattler. I know people were really on the edge.
No, I mean, I did all this film work on Bo Nix. I don't want it to go on, it will
go in the last, that'll be your pick for the last segment, okay? I think that'll make the most sense instead of more of that. Okay, enough of the stars for the moment. It's big boy time, baby! There's a reason why no defensive player went until pick number 15 of the draft. Offensive lineman can keep your quarterback upright, Aaron Rodgers, or it can help your running back have big-time numbers. I guess Saquon technically would have counted, but he kind of just survived all of that in the NFL with the Giants. So now starting with Anthony again. Let's talk O-line in the rest of this draft. And your guys came right off the board. You had Penix in the quarterback draft. He went number 8. And you had J.C. Latham from Alabama, who went number 7 to the Titans.
Yeah, 6'6", 342, the type of power player that the Tennessee Titans can rely on as far as anchoring the offensive line. Tackle was their biggest need entering the draft. They got offensive line coach Bill Callahan in the mix. This is going to be a question of, will J.C. Latham play either left or right tackle? Latham's played 17,053 snaps at right tackle over his career at Alabama. The Titans left tackles allowed 29 of the 64 sacks last season. So that's going to be just whether or not where he lines up entirely. But second team Associated Press All-American, first team All-SEC, started all 14 games at right tackle. Bulldozer in human form, as NFL.com describes him. Upper and lower bodies are supposed to be evacuate run lanes, instantly upgrade the team's ground attack. Body type is girthy, elite dry blocking talent, and obviously, Rabbi, you are a fan, a wrestling fan just like I am. What do we love more than anything? Big, meaty man
That's
slapping
right,
me.
slapping me.
All right, we love the big guys in the
Big
trenches,
boys, baby.
getting down and dirty, and ready to mix it up. And he is a guy with that kind of philosophy. Quick feet, possesses 2 knockback pop ability. Don't be surprised if he's in the top 10 in pancakes this season. He's one of those kind of players. The Titans got a good lineman at number 7. It's going to be a matter of which side do you line him up on, because he's been a right tackle most of his college career. Do you move over to the left side? And if you do, how quick of an adjustment is that going to be going down the line? But this is a good pickup for the Tennessee Titans at number 7. Number 7.
Jay, you and me had the same idea. Let's talk about big, meaty setters slapping meat and snapping the ball. Let's talk about Zach Frazier.
It's funny. Again, I'm looking at a guy who's, the number 3 ranked center, and that's Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, 6'2.5", 315. Guy has Brugler of The Athletic has a second-round grade on him. And the reason he kind of intrigues me is because center is a position that my Pittsburgh Steelers desperately need to fill. And Frazier's been in their backyard as a West Virginia guy. Tomlin likes him, so it's just a question of whether or not the Steelers take him at 20 or they wait till the second round. He could be available in either instance. He's a very physical center. Average size and length. In pass game, he's quick out of his stance. Plays with a wide, firm base and immediately anchors. He has the lateral quickness to redirect and mirror while playing with excellent eyes and awareness. Occasionally, he can be a little over-aggressive, duck his head, put himself in a tough spot, but he's athletic enough to recover. In the run game, he locks on with really strong hands. He rolls his hips and he uproots defenders. Quick to the second level, something that's key in the Steelers' running game, and adjusts well in space. He is a bulldog, collecting one knockdown after another to finish plays. He was a 4-time state wrestling champion. Seems like a lot of really good offensive linemen were. Carries that tenacity over the football field. He should be a day 1 starter and tempo setter for the team that drafts him. Now, that's Daniel Jeremiah's scouting report from NFL.com. Frazier was a 4-year starter at West Virginia, starting center in a balanced scheme that used both zone and gap principles in the running game. All-American resume, 37 consecutive starts at center before he broke his leg in the season finale last year. This past year. Leverage-based blocker, good grip strength. Again, his father's side were football players. Go figure. His mother's side were wrestlers, so he gets it from both sides of his DNA. So consistently finds a way to stay under control and finish. Might not boast the elite athleticism of the guy you're probably going to talk about, Rabbi, but I think Frazier's good enough in those areas to win over NFL teams. Really good football IQ, competitive toughness. Projects as a quality NFL starting center the moment he's drafted. So that's both, two guys that we all put a lot of stock in their scouting reports. Dan Brugler of The Athletic, Daniel Jeremiah, NFL.com. If Frazier falls to the Steelers in the second round, I'm just going to say thank you very much.
Or you could get one of them in the first round. And I think the top two centers in this, and Graham Barton of Duke and the guy I'm about to talk about, Jackson Powers Johnson of Oregon, are both great choices. And again, as I said before when we talked about the guy from Oregon State, Intalis Fuaga, I want people who can play all positions, because if you're going to play one spot in your position in the NFL, you're either going to be a Hall of Fame player or you're going to be somebody who is a Swiss Army knife. And I want a Swiss Army knife. So 893 snaps at center in college, 430 at right guard, 27 at left guard. He is a guy who is alert. He has a mean streak. And yeah, he's a big boy, 328 pounds. And firm base, somebody who could easily remove defenders from his feet, 37 knockdowns last year with Oregon. And he will get out in screens and second level workups. He is a guy who is, though, inexperienced at certain points in his technique. He doesn't consistently drive defenders off the ball. He needs a little more post-contact leverage and mechanics to really strengthen skills when he is sustained. Highly penalized as a junior, drawing 8 flags, and he battled multiple injuries at Oregon, but he is toughness, dedicated to his craft. He's also, again, as people say, you want youth at that position. He is probably going to be one of the younger people in the draft. He's only 21 years old. So I think Jackson Powers Johnson is a guy who reminds a lot of people of Ryan Kelly, won the Remington Award at Alabama, also was a first-round pick. Fantastic combination of size, athleticism, and toughness, and you need that skill to be a center and a guard. And again, multi-versatile. And if you're going to be an offensive tackle in this day and age, you can't just play one position. He'll go as center, but he'll be times where you're going to need him in other spots in the line.
Yeah, and you know, honestly, there's a lot of truth in what you say, Rabbi. The ability to, especially if you're not going to start week one, though he might, positional versatility is a big thing on the offensive line. That's what allowed a lot of guys to stick around for a lot of years.
All right, so we're going to wrap up tonight, but we had some big players in the top 15 of this draft, and as we go toward the home stretch, we kind of just mentioned it. Jay, Bo Nix went number 12 to Denver. This is the shortest amount of time that we ever saw 6 quarterbacks come off the board. 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks. Nix is a project. Is Denver getting the right guy?
Here, it's interesting. The thing about we're in this day and age is that, I honestly didn't expect him to go first round. So, I had all of this stuff ready lined up, and then he gets picked in the first round. And then, half an hour later, the beat writer for the Broncos for the Athletic had his information up there on the quick hit. So I'm going to go with that before I feed you guys into my bottom line, which came off of my film study this morning. This is what 2 anonymous coaches had to say about Nix in advance of the draft. Here's the first one, quote, "He's probably the best decision maker of the 3 Pac-12 quarterbacks, meaning him, Caleb Williams, and Michael Penix Jr. He can diagnose things very quickly. He doesn't have the arm talent that Penix and Caleb have, but I don't know that he's too far off. Most of his completions were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. He's athletic. He's a really competitive kid. He did a great job of picking us apart." Here's the second coach. "He's an excellent manager of the game. Would have loved to see him in a different offense. That system didn't require him to do much downfield, but you can see him launch it down the field to Franklin a few times. That would be Troy Franklin, who should also be at least no worse than a day 2 pick. I don't think he throws it as well as Caleb and Penix." Sean Payton, we know Sean Payton needed to get a quarterback. We know he knows quarterbacks, and Denver can't go anywhere without one. So, the guy who writes for The Athletic likes the fit here. I think it's probably a good fit. Nix's quick release and his poise should fit pretty well with Sean Payton. The Broncos needed a quarterback. unlike Atlanta, who took Penix. You wonder if Denver and Atlanta might have been able to trade back and still get either one of these guys. Knicks is the writer actually likes Knicks better than Penix, but it sure feels like Denver could have gotten more value out of this pick. A bold move, if nothing else. Here's how, according to the same writer, here's how he fits in Denver. Knicks' tape during his 2 seasons at Oregon was dotted with the kind of snap-to-throw movements and decisions head coach Sean Payton covets in a quarterback. 24-year-old was sacked only 5 times last season, 45 touchdowns, only 3 picks. He's the son of a coach and former quarterbacks, and Knicks puts a premium on avoiding the kind of mistakes that spoil drives, and that's likely where Denver's infatuation in the draft process began. There's a lot to like about Knicks. In fact, the conversation with the former Oregon passer is very similar to the one with Penix. He's older and there are physical limitations. Unlike Penix, Knicks also played in a very college-y offense at Oregon, and we're in an era where that's an actual thing. So as far as his potential impact as a rookie, 61 starts in college at 2 marquee programs. He's probably one of the more prepared to play quarterbacks in the draft, even if he's doesn't have a cannon, a la Drake May, or, the foot speed of a guy like Jaden Daniels. You can make the case that maybe the Broncos reached to draft Knicks at 12. He was at a day 2 prospect grade on him by Dane Brugler at The Athletic. Other draft experts had him as a day 2 guy. Payton, but according to sources, Payton said during the Super Bowl in February that if there was a quarterback in the draft that he and the Broncos loved, he was, quote, unconcerned about where others thought the player should be drafted. And I've said this before, if the guy that you like is available to you, you go get him. So can't fault them there. Knicks has the ability to deliver the ball quickly and efficiently. That's a good place to start. May not have the same diet of bubble screens and short throws with Denver that he had in Oregon, but that's still a decent part of Denver's system. Talent, overall approach should blend well with what Payton wants out of the position, giving him a strong chance to start by day 1. Now that's the Denver beat writer's take. Here's my bottom line on this guy. Overall, Bo Nix sees things pretty well, processing, recognizing different coverages, and I agree, he generally does make good decisions with the ball, rarely puts it in harm's way, handles multiple concepts well, which is a requirement in Oregon's offense. He recognizes when the coverage leaves an opening that he can exploit. He gets the ball out quick into that area and to the right target. He does need to slow down and use his full body more to push his throws forward. He tends to get stuck on his back foot, even when the throw doesn't require it, like downfield throws and deep outs, which require more of the body to be part of a throw that needs to be pushed downfield. He also needs to get his feet consistently aligned, needs to improve his pocket awareness, needs to slow down, be more settled so he can read what's in front of him, as opposed to being too quick to get off his reads and trying to find a throw, any throw. So if he's able to do that, he'll be able to make more plays from the pocket and not always look to run or throw on the run. As noted by some NFL folk, they need to see if he can handle a scheme where pure progression on multiple route concepts has the intermediate or deeper route being the first read and the shorter underneath route being the second read. Oregon's scheme had it the other way, and on a lot of their concepts, which is why his air yards per attempt of 6.3 was 120th in the nation, due to a lot of horizontal as opposed to vertical concepts and more 3 to 5 step drops than 7-step drops. That's the big knock on him, along with his age. At 24, he's the oldest quarterback prospect, and it's only over this past season where he really became part of the conversation. Look, I like Bo Nix. I think he has the right IQ and the right mentality. He's going to a place where the coach has a proven track record with the quarterback. And in this case, if the Broncos drafted Nix, that means he's the quarterback that Payton wanted, or at least that's how I see it.
Right.
And it's a situation where it's different when you're starting over in a new spot, and you're able to take the guy you wanted as opposed to trying to mold a guy you inherited to play the way you want the position to be played. So from that standpoint, I like the pick. Regardless of whether people think it's a reach, The thing here is here's what it comes down to. Sean Payton had Drew Brees for all those years, and Drew Brees is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He had an unsettled quarterback situation. He could not get along with Russell Wilson. They were oil and water despite their best attempts to make it work, though Russell Wilson actually had a better year in Denver last year than he had prior to coming to Denver, and even prior than his first year in Denver. So a lot of that has to do with Sean Payton. But now we're going to see if Sean Payton can do what he did in New Orleans, taking a guy that he wanted from scratch and turning him into a legit NFL starter. Maybe at week 1, but maybe just a little bit, maybe a little further down the road. The big thing we're going to look at is, can Bo Nix make the adjustment from the concepts that he ran that were the bread and butter of Oregon, which may not be the same set of concepts, predominant concepts, that he's going to have to run in Denver. It's an interesting pick, and it'll be interesting. It'll be a story worth watching to see if Sean Payton can do it again.
I think what you said is perfect, though. This is the kind of guy that Sean Payton likes. Ball security. He is a pro-style quarterback, and he will listen to what is going to be said to him. And I think he's going to excel. I wouldn't say excel, but I think he will. Number one, I think he will start week 1. I think he has enough age on him and enough experience on him in college that I think they won't be afraid to put him under the lights. I think Denver knows that they have to hit the reset button on this, and unless Nix gets hurt, I think he ends up having a decent season. I think he has the weapons right away and to have a good season for himself. And I do agree, but I think we said it with Daniel Jones so many years back. If you want the quarterback, you get him. And there's a lot of teams that needed quarterbacks this year. Again, there's a reason why. 6 quarterbacks in the top 12, and none of them traded up to the top 12 to get it. Minnesota only went up 1 spot. So the quarterback position is
right. The Broncos stayed put.
Yeah, Broncos stayed put. So all of those picks were literally in the top 12. So I think it's a vital position in the NFL, Anthony. And before we get towards the rest of the draft, what are your thoughts on Bo finally leaving college? I can't believe that actually is possible after his 17 years of eligibility. And
yes, I mean, yes. Look,
the Van Wilder of the NFL.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Even Van Wilder had to leave college at some point. But no, let's say Bo Nix. I think he's in a situation where he's going to be a starter right away. And like Jay said, he has the weapons to be successful early on. I don't think Sean Payton's going to have him going out and winning games. I think he's just going to have him manage to be a game manager, ball security, take care of the football as much as anything, and pick and choose his shots downfield. But I will say this though, and I hope it does work out for Bo Nix. But if it don't, I want to know who Sean Payton going to throw in the bus this time, because it does seem like he has people lined up that he's ready to throw in the bus if things don't work out. But but I'm trying to stay positive here. So I want to say for Bo Nix, I do think he's going into a good situation. Hopefully it does work out, because those new uniforms are hideous. Number one, but I do think Nix is a good pickup, and the Broncos didn't have to trade up to get him. He fell right into the laps at number 12, and it's a need that the Broncos desperately had to fill. I mean, we know the situation of Russell Wilson. By the way, they're paying half his salary for the next 2 seasons, actually. That's just how badly that combination did not work out. But I do see Bo Nix right away being the week 1 starter, and it's just gonna be a matter of he's gonna go through his growing pains. I mean, he's obviously he has some maturity to weather the storm as far as adversity. But we'll see how he grows into the situation. Denver's a good spot for his arm because of the high altitude, so he should be able to take a lot of deep shots downfield during home games. But yeah, at number 12, Bo Nix, the Broncos, you had to take them. I mean, you needed a quarterback. You wasn't going to find anyone on a free agent market, that's for sure, because you're already paying a guy his salary that you just got rid of. So Bo Nix is kind of the safe pick for Denver at this position.
All right, before we go, guys, I want to get to a couple of things since we're kind of going a little more old school, and we've mentioned almost everybody in the top 15 except for a few people. So I'm going to talk about the guy that Jay mentioned earlier, Rome Odunze, going top to Chicago at number 9. I mentioned before, Anthony, that the comparisons to the guy from LSU who the Giants just drafted is right there, Malik Neighbors, and I think this is a home run just getting Odunze to be a complimentary guy, Anthony, in Chicago to DJ Moore.
Yeah, well, I think we can definitely make the argument with the Bills won the first round in the top 15. The fact that they got their quarterback and they got another wide receiver piece, and arguably one. When you look at the top 3 receivers in this pick, you could go 1, 2, 3 in any order, because this is how good and deep this receiving core is. It depends on it was based on preferable taste and just how much of a fit.
I just think Marvin Harrison Jr. is just that. I just think Marvin Harrison Jr. The only reason I say that is I really like Neighbors and Odunze, but I just think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be that guy immediately on the field. You just see superstar in him. I'm not dissing the other two, by the way. I think you have 3 all-pro talents for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
I think with Neighbors, you do kind of see a little bit of OBJ quality in the fact that he can't be that explosive. With Harrison, I see more of a Larry Fitzgerald, a guy who could just do it all, and inside out, could be a good run blocker and just give you all the above. Odunze is someone who I would say Justin Jefferson, a guy who can really take the top off of defense of a cover 2, cover 3 defense, a guy who can definitely spell you outside the number 1 and number 2. You can slot him in number 3 with Keenan Allen being a number 1 or number 2. You got DJ Moore as well. So you have weapons in this Bills offense, and obviously you have DeAndre Swift coming over in the running game. He could be a receiver out of the backfield as well. When you look at the Bills offense on paper right now, this could be a very explosive offense for a franchise not known for having an explosive franchise. Even the Super Bowl that they won, there was a middle of the pack offense that rolled a historic defense to dominance. So Chicago definitely won the first round, and the fact that they got the quarterback that they wanted, but they got one of the 3 top wide receivers as well to complement him and to complement that offense. And one of the picks that is kind of a head scratcher, and I just want to touch on it briefly. Brock Bowers, a guy Jay mentioned earlier on, going number 13. Brock Bowers going number 13 to the Raiders is kind of a head scratcher when you already have Michael Mayer on the roster, who was coming into his zone before he was on season in the IR and missed the last 2 games of the season. And the Raiders, obviously, Pennis Jr. would have been a good fit at this spot, but they also had needs at offensive line in the secondary. So it is a bit of a head scratcher as to why they picked him. Maybe they go to a 2 tight end formation set that they maybe envisioning. I don't know.
Need weapons though for Gardner Minshew though. Gardner Minshew needs people to throw the ball to.
He needs somebody to block for him up front too, and that's something that the Raiders kind of neglected with this pick. I love Bowers as a weapon. I'm just not sure if he's a good fit for a Raider team that already kind of has an incumbent tight end and Mayo who was doing well, unless they're very concerned about Mayo's recovery from the foot injury that sent him one season in IR, and he missed the last 3 games of the season. But that is kind of the question mark. But biggest winner right now is Chicago.
Yeah.
Without question.
Yeah.
The Bills definitely hit a home run
Yeah,
tonight.
absolutely, Jay.
I mean, the thing about, as a guy who watched plenty of Pac-12 college football this year, and you kind of saw him developing, and you kind of got a sense from the way the offense was running at Washington. I said it to you guys at the top. Michael Penix Jr. had 3 NFL caliber wide receivers to throw to. I'm interested to see where McMillan and Polk end up in the draft. But Odunze, 3-year starter for the Huskies, primarily lined up outside, in the scheme that the Huskies ran. 75%, 25% in the slot over his full career. 2023 All-America, led Division I with 1,640 yards. His first down and touchdown rate, 80.4%. Above, field fast, which means you don't necessarily look at his speed in the 40. He plays fast on the field. Great route runner. Above average tracking and adjustment skills. Guy can secure catches in high traffic areas. 32 catches at 20 plus yards last year, second most in Division I. Great body control at the catch point. Became one of those guys who really learned how to play through contact. Improved his ability to win 50-50 balls. We're talking about a guy 6'2", 212, good size.
75, by the way, 75% contested catch rate last year. First in
there you
NCAA.
go. This is a guy who's going to be a playmaker at the NFL receiver spot. Projects as an X, so is an outside guy, and he has the type of skill set that that can elevate his quarterback's play. So I'm gonna take there a couple of notes that a couple of a scout and a wide receiver coach dropped, and these to me, these are the type of people I listen to. They say the scout said that Odunze is the safest guy of the top 3. Not as talented as Malik or as Neighbors or Harrison as far as getting consistent separation at the NFL level, but I trust him a little more than those guys as far as strength through the catch. He might be the best. He's built right to last and run routes. The wide receiver coach said the following: great at tracking the ball, rugged, has good run after the catch ability, can play inside and out, and he is so smart. Like different type of smart. He can pick things up so easily and will adapt easily to the pro game because of the system and the concepts they had there, meaning at Washington. And that really shows up in his game. I liked him from the moment I first saw him last year. And Anthony, you said it. Guy runs a 6'2", 212, runs a 4.45 40. This is a guy who has the complete package. Now, he may not have gotten the same amount of hype as Marvin Harrison Jr. because playing in the Big Ten, everybody watches the Big Ten, or even Neighbors, SEC guy, everybody watches the SEC. A lot of times, you guys know, Pac-12 is often Pac-12 after dark. Their games end after the East Coast is asleep. But anybody who watched this guy all of last year knows what the Bears are getting. Yeah, DJ Moore and Keenan Allen are the present and immediate future, but Caleb Williams getting to play pitch and catch with Rome Odunze, those guys are set at QB1 and wide receiver 1 for the next 10 years.
And they have DeAndre Swift at free agency at running back who got 1,000 yards last year. I think this is I feel like you're going to just hear the Harlem Globetrotters music come out every single time that they come down the field. There is so much offense on this team that they might outscore the defense from time. They might need to outscore their opponents from time to time. And I think this is a great pick for the Bears. They have every little thing that you need right now to win on the offensive side of the ball. Okay.
By the way, I throw this before we move on. I'll throw this out real quickly as a guy who's been in Soldier Field been in Soldier Field. Now would been a good time to switch to field turf and get that fast track in there now. So with that offense, because
they've got designs on
the grass field is not that great right now.
But we'll see, Ant. They got designs on a new football field not far from Soldier Field. We'll see how long that takes. Rabbi, before you sign us off,
I'm gonna talk about Troy Fautanu, Anthony's pick before for the Giants, who fell to the Steelers at number 20. That's exactly what I was gonna do.
I gotta tell you, I love this pick. Offensive line is a position of need for the Steelers, especially at the tackle spots. They are looking for, and again, you talk about positional versatility. You know, this is a guy who, and I'm just going to read you the quick hits here. You know, this is a guy who started at guard before transitioning out to left tackle. He was 2-year starter at left tackle, but can play inside or outside. They're ranked number 9 in the top 300. He, I believe, and I'll just double check this real quick. Yeah, number 1 ranked offensive guard by Dane Brugler of The Athletic. You got to love a guy who can play both. Outstanding run blocker, top end athleticism, great attitude. Can start inside. I think, bare minimum, he's got the inside track on starting at one of the guard positions. But whether he ultimately winds up at, let's say, left tackle or right tackle, love the pick flat out. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up. But, in terms of getting a big time offensive lineman with your first pick at 20, there's a lot of people who are going to tell you the pick at 20 this year was better than the pick at 20 last year.
Oh, well, that was 2 years ago, but that's another story for another time. Just a couple of notes.
I love this pick.
Oh no, great pick. It's a great pick, and it's like I said, there's very little difference, I think, in that offensive tackle position once you get past Joe Waltz and like 5 or 6 players, and he's one of them. So I think it's a very good pick. Just a couple of notes before I go. I don't like seeing all of these quarterbacks going early. I think all of them, except Penix, will start sometime in year 1, maybe not opening day. That's annoying to me, but I think this is the way the NFL goes. You need the quarterback, and this was a quarterback-rich draft. And some people got hyped up a little more than they probably should have. J.J. McCarthy is a big example of that. I think he was a marginal first-round pick that got bumped up into the top 10, and he was scheduled by many to go up into the top 5, but no one traded up for him, and that was the right call. I like what both local teams did tonight. I think they filled positions of need. I don't think there was a lot of reaches in this draft, and like I said, it was a very steady draft through and through. And the fact that a defensive player didn't go till number 15 is just wild to me, because they say defense wins championships, and a lot of these teams are going to build winners on the bottom because they're going to build with some premium defensive players. This was the offensive year. I completely understand that, but it just shocks me to see that the offensive position was the first position for 14 of these teams. And offensive tackle was only picked 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So 10 times skill position players went in the top 14. It's kind of shocking to me, but whatever. The NFL, and that's what this stage is. By the way, my favorite pick, not necessarily the best pick. If you have a guy named Chop Robinson on your team like Miami is about to have, I think you will always win when you pick a Chop Robinson in your draft. We're not making enough guys named Chop anymore in the entire NFL and the entire world. That's a pick that'll be fun. There's a lot of good picks, by the way, in this draft.
So where do you think that celebration is going to be next season when he makes a play? As a chop? I don't know.
You can't do the tomahawk chop.
I'm not doing a tomahawk chop. It's got to do something. Maybe like this, like a chopping motion, like a gator or something like that. But this is a dolphin. Dolphins don't have teeth. I don't know. They're going to have to be creative down there.
I'm just pissed off that Kool-Aid Ministry. I'm just pissed off that Kool-Aid Ministry didn't get picked up before the end of the draft. Let's.
I mean, that guy has one of the great names. I mean, kind of be nice to hear him get a call. Brian Thomas just went to Jacksonville, so
Okay.
Jacksonville.
another
All
wide
right,
receiver.
guys.
Here's Owen Lee.
Oh God! All right. For
I'm
Jay,
sorry.
stop it.
I had
Stop
to do
it.
I'm sorry.
Enough. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, thanks for hanging in with us. No reward for you tonight, though. Check your inboxes after the show. Anyway, YouTube.com/on the sports lines on demand. We are streaming this on Facebook.com/on the sports lines. And Jay, we have an X page.
Yes, we do. Our Twitter handle, and I will forever call it Twitter. Sorry.
You can't call it Twitter if you can't say the name correctly.
Fair enough. At ONTH Sports Lines, where you'll see a link to this show at some point tomorrow. And like I said, I posted an article by Mike Jones of The Athletic talking about the inexact science of NFL personnel, folks, when it comes to evaluating quarterback prospects for the draft. I read you a little bit of an excerpt for it earlier in the show. It is definitely worth a read. We're gonna revisit this quarterback draft down the road to see how well these guys, as I said in the tweet, who's going to be legendary, who's going to be notable football legendary, and who's going to be not for long. Yes, it's me playing on the letters NFL. So check out the tweet, check out the story. It is worth your time to read.
We'll be back next time on the Sports Lines. Good night, and thank you for sticking in with us.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.